Hey everybody, welcome to the Giant Bombcast. I'm Jeff Gersman. It's a very special episode. We're here. Fall's right around the corner. I'm joined by Dan Reichert.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm really well.
Me too.
And producing behind the console is Drew Scanlon.
That's me.
Yeah,
It's a very special day because everyone gets their own camera.
that's right.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Is that mine?
Everyone
that is
gets
yours,
singles, nonstop singles.
That's right.
That's
No
also the name of my new
visual
website,
jokes.
Nonstop Singles. They will not stop for anyone.
Well, singles stop being single when they find someone.
They will not stop being single on top of that.
That sounds like a terrible dating site.
These filthy sleaze bags.
They'll never not be single.
Yeah, well, they just keep paying.
Okay.
The guys pay, the women come in for free.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Them's the rules.
It's a good system you got
Like
there.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's chaos around these parts. I mean, people are dropping like flies. Brad had the good sense to get out of town, get out of the country, I think, and escape for the week. So I'm taking over as a guest host for a bit here.
He tweeted a picture of a beer and a volcano in
Yeah.
the same picture.
Yeah.
So he's doing it right.
He's all right.
I can tweet a bunch of Kleenex pictures from next to my bed from blowing my nose for the last few days.
Well, you know,
so-
okay, I thought that was
Yeah,
from
well,
something
yeah.
else. I was like, okay,
yeah.
all
Well,
right,
you know,
yeah.
Column A, column B, you
Yeah.
know, but mostly terribly sick.
Great. Yeah. No, I have the sickness has left my body, but I still have a bit of a cough. When I get sick, sometimes just to get into it here, my lungs will get inflamed, and I have to use an asthma inhaler to deal with the inflammation.
You got that? We got that purple disc. What's up?
No,
What are you rocking?
it's the old style pump, but now they don't let you just put that directly into your mouth and use it. They give you like a little bong, like a little chamber, and you fire the mist into the chamber and then inhale out of the chamber, because otherwise the wetness of the mist just coats your throat and you're not actually inhaling any of it.
Chamber,
okay.
huh?
So separating into this chamber, and it's like you put like I put like whipped cream in there, like cools the smoke
Okay,
down,
all right.
and it's like a dual chamber. It's like a 5-footer.
What kind
and
of ohms we talking?
It's shaped like the Enterprise.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I'm trying to do that. Jason is out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his
Down
family.
for the count.
Yeah. No, his kid's been sick, and now he's sick because that's how it works, right?
Jason's family, me and my fiance. I don't know, Drew, if you've hit anything.
Not yet.
All right, it is 100%
Drew stays healthy.
I
And also he sits all the way down there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It helps.
I do want to put the blame squarely on Ben Hansen from Game Informer. He came here from Minnesota for a weekend.
This Minnesota shit.
Yeah, he was around
Minnesota
me.
strain?
He was around Jason.
Yeah.
We all got it. I talked to him today. He's fine now, but the ripples of his illness have gone everywhere. So it's fantastic.
He's got that Minnesota soda.
He always says
Is that a strain? Because they call it that? Do they grow it there?
Is that a weed thing?
Probably.
Probably. I don't know.
I don't know. There's
Minnesota
Sonoma.
strain.
There's Sonoma coma.
That's a real thing?
Yeah.
It's my
Okay.
favorite Crichton book.
What does it
Well, I don't know
say?
if it's a real thing or just what people from Sonoma County, where I am from, would just use to refer to weed.
What would the San Francisco, what rhymes with?
AK-47.
Oh, that doesn't rhyme with anything.
No, I don't know.
No? Okay.
In San Francisco, they would just call it feces on the street. I think that's the
Okay,
popular
cool.
strain out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Street shit.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
I had a San Francisco ass day on Saturday.
Cool.
I had a saga.
Okay. The San Francisco saga continues.
It was kind of amazing. I think most people, this would be like the worst day they've had in a long time. But I was just like,
Or for you, it was just Saturday.
well, no,
Yeah.
I just thought it was hilarious
For
because the
Bison,
way
it was Tuesday.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Basically, I just needed to switch my phone over from I bought the new iPhone, and I wanted to switch to Sprint. Because,
Okay, well, that is a nightmare. Switching carriers is terrible,
Yes.
but that would be terrible in any city.
Well, I have a bunch of friends that work at Sprint because they're based in Kansas City. So, like, half the people I went to high school with work at Sprint. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if my old roommate could get me a discount. Turns out he could, so I tried to switch over. So I buy the phone from Apple. I'm going to leave out the really boring minutia here because there's a ton. But I had to go to a Sprint store to activate it. And they told me that they can't do it in store.
Okay.
And while they're doing it in store, there's some guy that looks like Billy Idol if he had like Donald Trump's skin color.
Ugh.
And he is just freaking out. He's looking at a display unit and just twitching and screaming and all this stuff. And in the
Like screaming, like what kind of?
a lot
like,
of
okay, so
like
okay,
a lot of
all right,
that.
Okay.
And so the guy has to stop helping me for a second to go over to help Billy Idol. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, "Oh, you're gonna kick me out? What are you gonna do? You're gonna kick me out?" And he lays down on the floor, starts rolling around and taking his clothes off.
Cool. All right, that's a thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want to be removed from a place, like that's one way to get people to like not want to touch you.
He did get kicked out.
Okay,
So the cops
all
got
right.
called, but before the cops got there, the guy got kicked out. So anyway, the guy tells me that I can't do that in store. So I'm like, okay. I'm all the way out here.
I like that that's not like the story is that you saw a guy roll around on the floor. It's actually like phone activation part.
No, that's the boring part, but there are several things in between here.
Okay.
So basically, I come to the office because I have to do everything online, they say, and they won't let me use their computers. So I come here, and long story short, I spent 3 hours on hold on the line with Sprint trying to switch stuff over.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, there was a major communication error going on. There was a major, accent that I'm not going to try to reproduce here.
Okay.
But she could not understand me that well. I could not understand her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, an hour into this call, she starts getting really somber. And I have no idea why.
Yeah.
And she starts saying things like, well, I'm very sorry about your friend. And I was like, I'm sorry, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, it's just, that your friend has passed on. I'm sorry. And I was like, no, my friend isn't dead. No, I talked to him this morning. He told me to call here. So she spent a good chunk of this thinking that my friend was dead, and she's also trying to sell me a new phone.
Wait, which friend? The Sprint friend or?
Sprint friend, yeah, because I was like, oh, my friend works there. He can give out 10 discounts a year or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And so she took that as he died, and I guess I inherited his employee discount or something.
Yep, that's how that works.
Yeah, so I got put on hold for like an hour. This other person came back. I'm on hold for another like 40 minutes. This whole thing on the phone took 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I was here at the office.
Yeah.
You sound exhausted just describing this.
Yes, I rarely get angry.
At the end of this, did you then walk back into the Sprint store and twitch at a phone and then take all your clothes
That might
off
what
to,
happened.
to get back at? This is just how the loop happens?
Yeah, Billy Idol might have been some like guy that worked here before, totally fine, and then
That's who she was talking about. It's like, I'm sorry about your friend who got thrown out of the store.
Oh, yeah. So long story short, she tells me I need to buy a phone through Sprint and return the one that I bought through Apple. So I have my Apple phone.
Did you buy a Sprint phone from Apple?
No, I bought an...
Okay, then yes. That's...
Well, no. I was... It's a long story, trust me. It's boring, but yes, I had to return the Apple one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, fuck it. I'll go to the Apple store. And so I go down to the one next to Powell Station.
Yeah.
And I get out. And it's a thing that says, oh, we miss you, San Francisco, but, we'll never leave you. We just moved. I'm like, okay, great. I have no idea where they are. My shitty burner phone can't use a map or anything. So I'm going around asking security guards and stuff where the Apple store is. Find out it's near Union Square. Everything's under construction there, so it's taking me forever to walk anywhere. There's skateboarders everywhere, and it's just a huge pain in the ass.
Damn skaters. They were probably painting graffiti.
They probably were.
Yeah.
Yeah, delinquents.
Uh-huh.
So I get there. I go to return it. It's super busy. They spend forever trying to type in every individual IMEI and serial number and my phone number and my email address. They get to the end, server issue, they have to do it all again. This happens 3 times.
Cool.
So I'm standing there forever, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. It's hot. I just want to get home. Finally, I get the return. I'm like, okay, all I want to fucking do is get home. I want to go to Safeway and buy a bunch of macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
And I want to eat a bunch of macaroni and cheese and just relax.
Yep. I'm sorry about your macaroni and cheese friend who passed away.
He was a good guy.
You inherited his deal, so you got a discount on macaroni and cheese, though, right?
The new white cheddar stuff.
Right,
yeah,
cool.
it's great.
Yeah, good.
So I get on the damn train, and I'm so happy that I get a seat, and I'm like, okay, I can just play across 3D the whole way back. So I'm sitting next to the window. Some guy comes and sits down next to me.
Yep.
He's like odd, and like he seems homeless, but not like aggressive or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he has just a bunch of like shirts and cloths and stuff in his lap. And I'm not looking at him because I don't want him to like talk to me. And I can tell he's doing something with like a needle or something.
Cool.
All of a sudden, I hear all these ladies on the train like kind of gasping and stuff. And I just kind of glance over, and then I hear the ladies say like, oh, just take those home and put cold detergent on them, or cold water and detergent, and then for your hands, you need to like bandage it this way. And I turn, and the guy is just looking at me, holding his hands up, and they're covered in blood.
His hands are wearing the crimson mask.
Yes. The crimson gloves.
He got color on the train.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the guy's just looking at me with blood-covered hands. And as these women are trying to explain to him how to get it out of his clothes, he says to me, and I swear to God, this is the part that's going to sound made up. He goes, listen, lady, this isn't the first time I've gotten blood all over something. So I get to the store. I get to the store. I buy a shitload of macaroni and cheese, and I'm leaving. And then my biggest pet peeve, I think, in the world is indecisive pigeons. Like when they
do the
thing,
100%. That's
well,
yes.
No, it really makes me mad. If they're walking on the street, that's fine.
Fight the real enemy.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're flying through the air, I'm fine. It's when they do the thing when they know you're walking close to them and they just freak out and kind of flap around your face for a little bit.
Yeah.
So the second I leave Safeway, 3 pigeons fly up directly into my face and just flap around for like 3 seconds, and I just laughed. I was like, that okay, perfect. That's the perfect way to end this day.
Yeah.
And then I went and ate a bunch of macaroni.
All right. Did you get the phone, or were they like, we're sold out of that?
No. So I have no phone right now. I have a shitty burner phone.
Cool.
I have no Sprint account number.
Okay.
And I have absolutely no confirmation that a phone is on its way to me.
Cool. All right. You've done well. You are set to be the next Billy Idol.
Yeah, that's me in about 3 weeks here. So yeah, that was my Saturday, pretty much from like 9:30 to almost 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean that's that's a pretty standard like deal with tech. You realize like the company has a deal with Verizon, and you probably could have just gotten some deal through.
I used to get a
CVS.
discount with
Yeah.
AT&T, but like I get some like crazy ass discount through
all right.
Sprint or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, that was my day.
That sounds action packed.
Yeah, it was real fun.
Yeah, that's
And I have no phone at all. How's your phone? You got the 7?
I did. I did. I got a new phone. It's fine. When I first hooked it up to my car, it didn't work right, and I got all worried that I was gonna have to take my car in for a firmware update.
Like Bluetooth stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I couldn't talk on the phone through the car, and any of the car features just weren't working properly. And then I rebooted the phone and reconnected it, and it seems to be working fine now. But
Do you use
that
the
was my
Bluetooth
big
stuff a lot?
Yeah, absolutely for music as well.
Okay.
It all goes through Bluetooth that way. But then the phone integration is. I mean, legally, that's the way you're supposed to be doing it, is hands-free.
I always had bad luck with those things. Like I used to have like the GPS devices that would have Bluetooth calls or whatever, and no one could ever hear
But
me.
that's that's a separate device. Like this stuff is
guess.
integrated into the car. So like they account for like, hey, the microphone's going to be somewhere where the driver can talk.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
And you can pick up the phone and hang it up from the steering wheel and stuff like that. So that stuff actually works pretty well. Sometimes I take calls in the car while I am live broadcasting.
Oh right.
Which is real convenient.
On the Mixler.
Yeah. So that stuff's been pretty good. I don't know, like it doesn't have a headphone jack. I don't really care. It's a bigger screen. That's all I really wanted, and it's a bigger storage, which I also wanted.
You went big screen, big storage. I went kind of small, mid. I guess I got the normal size and the mid storage range.
Yeah,
thing.
I think we're the only two people that bought these things around that I can think of around the office.
I think so. Yeah.
Because everyone else is smarter.
I'm on that hot S cycle.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
prefer it that way.
Yeah.
Iron all the kinks out. Let
Sure.
Dan have the one that doesn't work. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's we talk about them. I don't know that I really care that much about it. I just after seeing Alex with his big phone when he comes out here for a while, everyone's seeing that thing and going like, a bigger phone be good.
Yeah. I just work because like I run with my phone in my pocket, and I just think that'd be way too big to be flopping around.
Depends on your pockets, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's another iPhone. It's the same shit.
Yeah.
Like, guess what? It's the exact same fucking thing. Like, there's some convenient things about it that I think make it slightly easier to use, but who fucking cares? It runs the same games. It runs the same shit. All the phones are the same.
think
the
how
idea
big Mario's going to make when he runs.
That's right.
across the
When
screen.
Mario is running
Yeah.
forever, then we're going to see some serious shit. This is the NX right here. I've got it.
Surprise.
I got one.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like I like it. I don't really care. Like I thought about going Android this cycle, specifically for Gear VR,
Oh yeah.
and thought it would be cool to have a mobile VR setup and stuff like that. But then I don't know. It seems like that stuff is slightly off cycle right now, where like they're refreshing the Gear VR. Or making another one of those in the near future, or a recent past, or somewhere around now. So it just didn't seem like it was necessarily the right time to get an Android phone.
Would you consider getting one just for the VR stuff and not like attaching your phone line and everything to it?
Yeah. If I could get one at a reasonable price, there was one. So someone actually sent us a Gear VR. Which those things are about $100, I think, somewhere around there, $90. They gave them out for free for a while. And I thought like, oh well, we should get like a S7 or S6 or whatever in here. And try that stuff out. And they had refurbished phones on Woot for a while, and I was looking at buying one of those just to have one in the office so we could do Gear VR stuff. But then I realized like, okay, like they're basically calling these scratch and dent, and I don't want to get a scratched up phone screen that I can't return. That then when I put in this Gear VR and it's looking at the screen, the lenses are going to make those scratches way crazy. You know,
Right,
like
yeah.
the possibilities there seemed like maybe it was not worth it. So it probably would have been fine, but I ended up not pulling the trigger on it. So
That thing works surprisingly well.
The
Gear VR.
VR?
I'm really
Yeah, yeah.
like impressed with it's a phone. You know?
I still have never really tried one. I put it
really?
on for like
Okay.
like a brief period of time, but it's kind of the one mass like big supported consumer VR headset that I haven't tried.
Yeah, like when you consider what you have to have in your PC to be able to run Oculus and Vive stuff.
Right.
The fact that that's running on a phone. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look as great, but it like totally works and is smooth and
the
gets
portability.
the VR stuff across.
The portability is kind of insane. Like a few months ago, I was at a bar with Samantha Kalman, and she pulled one out of her purse.
Right, yeah.
And just like, it's like, oh, here, try this VR thing I'm working on. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's insane. I'm just at a bar, and we don't have to plug it into anything.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
At a bar and you can disappear from the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does sound pretty awesome. Yeah, so I would like to get one of those someday for whatever reason, whether I'm switching my main phone over or just getting a phone and not putting a SIM in it just specifically to do this stuff. That would probably make some sense. The hassle, though, is like, I was thinking like, oh, man, and we'll totally like, integrate Gear VR games into the Verodio and cover some Gear VR. And then I realized like, oh, the port you're going to use to get video out of an Android phone is the port that the Gear VR goes into. So some games you could theoretically project it, like miracast it out to like a Chrome stick or something like that.
Is miracast like what they use for like Tyler Breeze's entrance?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
It's a protocol, like it's not necessarily like a piece of software on its own. It's just a protocol for projecting stuff, like a Chromecast would or something like that. I think that might be based on Miracast or might be their own proprietary stuff, but we'd be able to get something out of it that way. You might have to root the phone to do that, and that's all doable. But it was just one of those things that was just daunting at a point of just like, oh man, there's actually not that much on the Gear VR that I'm looking to cover immediately. So let's just wait this out a little bit and see how it goes.
Can you access Rec Room?
No.
Okay, then never mind.
No, there's currently no Gear VR version of Rec Room.
Okay.
So what's the point of any of this stuff if you can't play Rec Room on it?
I think that's my favorite VR thing I've seen so far.
We are gonna
I really got to go back and watch that.
Oh man,
I was not in the control room for that one.
Yeah,
I just hear you guys come out of there and go, whoa.
I've been so disappointed in like every VR thing I've seen since VR has actually been out, except for Rec Room. Like that's the one thing I saw him do and was like, okay, I want to spend some time in that thing. Okay.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about VR. I mean, because we revisited it recently, and because I have been thinking a lot about Rec Room. Which, so if you go watch the Verodio 5, where we skip the first hour of Oculus stuff and get into Rec Room, which that sentence is what I've been thinking about a lot with VR lately. Is that like there is a gulf now, and Oculus is going to release their touch controllers, and that's going to, I think, bring them into a point where they can, they'll have more capable pieces of software in their store and all that other stuff. But I think the more I see it happening, Oculus's approach to publishing games and stuff like that, I think is like an overall negative for VR. It's like it's slowly becoming a negative one. Where I think they're chasing after, like they're doing publishing deals, like a console manufacturer would. They're going out there and saying, it's almost like Sony's third-party production team or something, but without other people's IP or whatever it is, where they're saying like, hey, make a game for. I mean,
like them going to Insomniac.
They're publishing. They're going to Insomniac and saying, what do you got? Insomniac's got VR projects, and Oculus is publishing them, and they become Oculus exclusive. And you can hack that stuff to make it run on a Vive, but generally speaking, it's the Oculus storefront. It's the Oculus experience. It's but more importantly, it's seated gamepad-based VR, which I'm so completely done with.
Like you showed that one game that
Feral Rights.
Yeah, it looked like it looked like single player Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks to me, like the way like the combat was, and
so they cut the price on that almost immediately after we recorded and posted 50, that video. Right? It was $50 when we recorded it. It went to like $30, and I think for a brief period of time it might have been $10, which
sure.
$10 is a more approachable price for a game that simplistic. But also like VR pricing is going to be a hard one across the board. I think there'll be some stuff coming out on PlayStation VR where people are going to go like, oh man, like this is too much money, because I think that's just the reality of like developers are making this software from scratch, and then they are releasing it on a unit that has a very limited install base compared to non-VR screen technology and all that other stuff. And they're like, okay, for this to work from a business sense, right, like a business perspective right now, they have to get more money out of each consumer to make it make sense for them to have spent years making this game.
And they have to assume that the people that are buying VR headsets this early probably have some disposable income.
Right, yeah. And, and I think you'll see more of that of like, you probably see more of the Feral Rights stuff where people will come in high and then immediately cut when they realize like, oh, no one's falling for it. Like we gotta cut sooner rather than later. But
is The Climb still $50? Because that seemed like even less of a $50 game than Feral Rights, maybe.
Yeah, so the Climb is going to get Oculus Touch support. I played it with the touch
Okay.
controllers at E3, and that's a better game. But yeah,
I
agree.
It's a simplistic game.
Let's search. Let's search for the Climb on this laptop I have sitting right here and try to find out. The Oculus storefront. Yeah, the Climb is still $50. That's an insane amount of money for that game. Because I don't think that game is particularly good in the first place.
No.
And I played with the touch controllers at E3, and it's better. But I still don't know that I would ever pay $50 for that thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing. Like, it's the difference between what people expect to pay for hardware and software is so wildly different, and like in a way that doesn't make sense. But it's just kind of the way it is, of that feeling of like people go like, oh, well, $600 from Oculus Rift. I guess I could see paying that with all this expensive PC and all this other stuff I have. $50 for a game, fuck you. It's like,
yeah.
All right, well, this stuff has to line, like there's this stuff all has to shake out, I think. And we'll see.
I'm still waiting because I go back to old Bombcast and stuff when I was doing demos at E3 or PAX of Oculus stuff, and I was blown away.
Totally.
Like, I think I said after that Oculus Touch demo that was the most impressive E3 demo in like 11 or 12 years
They're
of doing
great
this
controllers,
stuff.
but like think about it, like that demo you got, that Toy Box demo, is a lot like the stuff that's appearing on the Vive now.
Yeah.
Where it is this more free form, like it feels more like an experience, and as a result, it kind of just comes across in a more dreamlike way. Whereas I think taking traditional video games like Feral Rights or even the Climb to a certain extent, that's a different sort of thing. But you're still like, hey, climb this for time. Like the structure around it is very traditional, and slapping that into VR or building it for VR, slapping sounds too negative. I think that's a tougher sell.
Well, those early demos, like they got me so excited for the possibilities of the technology.
Right.
And now that the reality is here, it's not as fun as wondering like, oh man, think of all the stuff they can do with this.
Right.
And then when it's like, oh, look at all the stuff they've done with it so far.
Well, I think the thing is, like, I think big publishers and big developers are making big publisher and big developer games, or they're making downloadable console games for VR. They're making games of that size and scope, but they're charging a little bit more than they would. And I think that stuff is profoundly uninteresting to me.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like, hey, play Resident Evil 7 in VR. Like at first blush, you're like, oh, that's fucking awesome. I should be able to play everything in VR. But the more time I actually spend with VR stuff, like that's total. I don't want to do that at all.
Yeah.
But also the things I do want to do are these things like Rec Room, where there are these crazy, almost experimental experiences that you can't justify going out and spending $800 on a Vive and then a bunch of money on all this software that is super hit and miss,
right?
Just to have these experiments kind of exposed. So the stuff seems like that market seems kind of broken right now. It's still figuring itself out very much. And so Oculus has in early October, Oculus Connect is happening. That's their developer conference.
Is that the thing where they announced the touch controllers like last year? Is this
yeah,
like an annual thing
I
now?
suspect this is going to be them finally announcing price and availability for the touch controllers. Some stuff started to leak out over the weekend where I think a couple of sites were reporting like 199 euros. But
for the controller pair?
But that could just be conjecture. I don't know. I don't know what the source is on that.
And they're still supposed to be this calendar year, right?
I think they're supposed to be October because at E3 everyone was saying, "Hey, yeah, we're working on this game. It's like Windjammers, kind of, but like Pong, like this sort of thing. It's kind of awesome, and it requires Oculus Touch." By the way, so anyway, it's coming out in October, and you're like, "All right." You're starting to see on the Oculus storefront like they're listing Oculus Touch as an available control method.
Okay,
like they've started to make those sorts of updates. But I don't think they've actually come out and said when that stuff's going to happen. I think that'll change things for them, but that's still going to get them to a place where, by default, unless you're doing some weird stuff with the sensors and kind of setting them up in a non-standard way, you're not going to get the Vive-style room scale. It really is kind of just it's a bigger area. It'll end up being, I think, better tracking than the PlayStation VR. It'll track a bigger space than the PlayStation VR will with its camera and move controller stuff. But it's still that basic concept of you're kind of standing in front of your screen, wearing a different screen, doing your thing.
Right.
But you can turn all the way around because it's not relying on the camera like PlayStation VR is.
Does PlayStation have any kind of see-through thing like Vive has? Like Vive is the only one that has that, right?
Yeah. The Vive's the one with the camera on the front.
Yeah.
So the PlayStation VR stuff, I think they just announced at TGS that they are going to have some kind of support for looking at your phone inside of VR, and they've built like some landscapes, some 3D photography or whatever it is, where you can hang out in this meadow and look at your fucking phone. Which sounds
awesome.
Which sounds, yeah, totally like perfect, of course. But I think it only works with like Xperia phones, or
Sure.
with, or like like who knows what devices that thing will actually support. Yeah, so I think that's kind of something that they're looking at. And the Vive stuff will actually, you can tether your phone to that as well, and I think you'll get like texts that'll show up as notifications in
Like
the
a
headset.
little like Google Glass thing or something,
Almost,
like in the corner.
yeah. I didn't actually set it up with our Vive here, so I don't know what that actually looks like, but I'm pretty sure you can do that. That might also be an Android only thing. I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, it's so Rec Room. I mean, let's just have our VR chunk up front. I was going to talk about Rec Room anyway. Rec Room is free. I think at some point they're going to grow that to a point where they start selling DLC. I
Like
think
little
that,
like side games.
yeah,
and stuff like
I think
that.
that's their plan. But it's a couple of developers from the looks of things. It's a small team up in Seattle made this thing. It is free, and it is a social multiplayer space where they have created a handful of games, but also there's a lobby system, and they've really nailed a lot of key interactions and like the social end of this stuff in a way that the things that are dedicated social spaces like Surreal VR and Altspace VR, like I don't think they quite are getting it in a fun way. They're not like having a fun fuck around thing. They're like, no man, this is we're gonna nail it. You know, like you get the impression that those are like more serious about social, whereas this is like
Those feel more like a PlayStation Home attempt or something.
Yeah.
And this is more just like a Chuck E. Cheese.
totally,
You
yeah,
know?
Exactly. It's like you're hanging out in this locker room with a bunch of other like disembodied torsos with these goofy stylized heads and hands,
Like Rayman hands going around. Yeah.
and the thing, so and so that's a lobby where you congregate, and then you can go play paintball or charades or a handful of other games. The only thing we've played is paintball. So I think we are going to have to take another look at this thing and look at the rest of the games.
Charade sounds good.
Yeah, charades sounds like a thing that would be real goofy in VR. Like that's a smart, weird, dumb thing.
Is it all microphone stuff? Is everyone talking to each other?
So because there's a microphone on the Vive, everyone can just talk, and I think that's something people forget, that the Vive has a microphone until suddenly you're in a space like that, and you're like, oh, like there's no keyboard, like there's no other option for real communication other than I am talking to this other person, and so you have a lot of people who invested in this technology early. Who, when we played Rec Room, I think we were lucky. I don't know, maybe it's like this all the time. But we encountered a lot of other human beings who were down for it, who were just like, fuck it, let's have a good time. Like, let's fucking point weird guns at each other and tell goofy jokes. And some of them got off color in a way that was like a little disappointing, but fucking generally speaking, it was people being themselves and like having fun with it and being not super self-conscious.
Yeah, like you went behind the counter at like basically like a YMCA like check-in counter.
It's a locker room where then there's it's like a boys and girls club. It's
Yeah,
like, hey,
yeah.
there are darts hanging out and there's little cameras and just like stuff you can fuck around with while you're waiting to play a game or doing whatever.
Yeah, so like you went behind the counter and like it sounded like a kid actually from the voice came up and like rang the bell and was like, I'll have 3 darts, please. And you gave him you threw him into his head at one point.
Right, yeah.
And he left and some other guy came up and you threw him a boombox and he put it on his shoulder and started dancing around with it. And you took a confetti gun and shot confetti at him and he dropped the boombox and acted like he was dead. And like all these interactions were just like, this is amazing.
So you're seeing this body, this disembodied flying body like go down on the ground because, and then you realize like, oh man, that person just laid down in their living room or wherever they are because they're going for it.
And they were dancing around with a fake boombox for a while.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that's amazing about VR. That's the stuff that like those sorts of interactions and stuff that you couldn't really do in traditional games. Like it's stuff that like the Wii kind of hinted at these types of like motion controlled sort of things, but bringing it into this kind of shared space thing, like it feels special,
I think the moment we realized how much we loved that was when you accidentally joined a party.
Yeah, so that might be like the coolest VR interaction I've seen where like whoever, like, the people on this team that built that are fucking geniuses. So there's an achievement built in for high-fiving people. So everyone's just standing in a circle around this man who's pretending to be a robot. And that's,
pretty convincingly for a while.
No, but okay.
I was fooled for a bit.
Well, okay, that's fine. I was like curious about it for the first 10 seconds, and I'm like, oh, this is a dude just doing this. That's even better. So yeah, you can high five and little sparks will come off it, but then like just the reason it's so cool is because it just happened naturally.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing that if they explained it up front, it would kind of be
if it was a tutorial video, it'd be like, all right, whatever.
I'm sure there's like a clipboard around that explains how to do it. But like, so, people are high-fiving, goofing about, and suddenly like someone puts their fist out, and I'm like, well, all right. So you pull the trigger to make your hand into a fist, and then we're fist bumping, and then I let go, and then it just says party join.
There's like an explosion, and it says party join.
And like, holy shit. Like, it's just, oh, it's so good. It is so good. And then as soon as a bunch of people partied up, we all vanished off and played paintball, which was actually super fun also for a lot of the same reasons that like Hover Junkers is fun, and a lot of the same reasons why Raw Data is good, is that that room scale stuff of like, so like the teleporting stuff, like teleporting around the environment, I think is like it makes a lot more sense once you've done VR. I think the people that were watching a lot of these demos and have never tried it, all of them just go like, why can't I just move? And sometimes I'm still like that, where sometimes there are games where I'm just like, I would rather just move. But it is just straight up that's probably a limitation that, we're not going to cross immediately, because moving and turning, you do that's where the motion sickness happens. So teleportation is the solution for that, or one of the early solutions for that. But you are teleporting, around freely, more or less. So you're kind of teleporting around cover, and you get that thing of like, I'm ducking behind cover by actually ducking, and I'm still shooting because I am holding my gun up around this corner and shooting it, exposing as little of myself as possible, the way one might do if they were an idiot with a real gun, or with a paintball gun in an actual paintball fight or something like that. These are not well-aimed shots, but who cares? It's low stakes. I have infinite ammo. I can just sit here and dump. And like, that's the stuff that feels really good. It's the stuff that, like, you think about like cover shooters, like Gears or something like that, of like, I'm behind cover, I'm not behind cover. Like, those are the two states. You're either holding the left trigger to be up over, or you're not.
Yeah, it's 1 or 0.
Yeah.
There's no really, in between there.
Right. And that's the idea that, like, Farpoint for PlayStation VR and a lot of these other games with guns. And there's another game, I believe it's called Onward, that I really want to try. It's like more of a tactical military thing that sounds like it's doing some really interesting stuff. But that's the thing of like these more realistic attempts at covering your own ass,
or games with shields where you can kind of like aim around the shield,
right? Yeah, like Space Pirate Trainer has a
Yeah.
shield, and you can kind of hold that up and then put the gun around, around it, and kind of do your thing. And like, that's the stuff that, like, there's a fidelity to that you cannot get with a controller, ever. And that's the stuff that feels magical and new and exciting. I think the thing is like, will there be enough of those? Like, how long will it take for there to be enough of those for you to feel like VR is definitely its own thing and worth getting for gaming?
That's what I'm waiting for, because
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to buy it. I want all that excitement I had pre-release to manifest in real games.
Right.
But I'm not there yet. I'm
Like,
not
that's
gonna
still,
buy
I mean,
one
like
yet.
watching you do that Toy Box demo with Palmer Luckey 83 is like, that was the first moment I had where it all clicked, and I was like, this is actually like profound and important and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So, seeing Rec Room kind of like do a lot of those things, in its own way of like, hey, you're like, this other person has like physical, like, someone looked over at me and said, man, you're tall.
Yeah.
And there was a kid in there who was way lower to the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit.
That's not because he adjusted a slider when he started,
like,
when he made
that's-
his character.
Yeah, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
That stuff just is so cool. And I think there needs to be a lot more of that stuff, but I don't know how. Like, if I had that problem solved, I would be off making VR billions, assuming there are VR billions to be made.
Right.
Someday there will be, I think. This stuff's not going to go away. Point
No.
being, I think like this stuff is only going to get better, whether it's for gaming or not gaming. Like, it is too tantalizing. The good things about it are too good to walk away from, even if like the mainstream gaming audience doesn't necessarily have a lasting interest in it. This will get there just by inertia at some point. Like, it's too good.
Well, but it sounds like, I mean, as demonstrated by things like Rec Room, that there is some other dimension to what VR games can be. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
video games are pretend,
Yeah.
but like the boombox and the confetti gun leads you to be able to pretend in a different way.
It's LARPing at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you start to think about stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, why am, I could pretend to be a person in this rec room, locker room, or, hey, let's be professional wrestlers. Hey, let's do this. Let's, and let's get an audience into it, because this stuff can be more performative than, kind of traditional video games usually are.
Yeah, I mean, video games have been blasted for decades about, stifling creativity.
Sure.
And I would argue with that, but this seems like a much easier way to see, like, look at what you can do in something like this.
Yeah, I mean, you
as
start
opposed
to
like Gears of War, where you are binary, cover or not cover.
And like, I'm not knocking Gears of War. Like, honestly, like, I am fucking dying to play Gears 4 at this point, because it looks fucking awesome. But like, I think that the VR is kind of just, it needs to be in its own lane. It's like more akin to something like Minecraft at its best, right? Like, that's, talk about creativity in games, like, there have been plenty over the years. But if you just want the modern example, the go-to shorthand, it's like, well, look at Minecraft.
Yeah.
And look what people are doing there.
This feels so much more substantial than something like the first time you played with the Wii or the Kinect.
Yeah.
That maybe there was that initial like, oh wow, I'm moving to do this thing, or
like,
I don't even have a
tennis.
controller.
Yeah, right.
Like that was cool for a second, and then it sucked. With this, we're not there yet with the games or whatever, but the tech is still amazing. It doesn't feel like a gimmick.
Well, this is all stuff that is, lessons learned from years of the Wii and the Kinect and all that sort of stuff. This is all kind of tied into that, and they're putting it all together with 3D screen tech and head tracking and stuff like that that really works.
Yeah, there's no way it was going to come out right out of the gate and be like this. Like, all these iterations of motion control and tracking and things like that are leading to this, and it's just going to get better.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it'll go. But, I think that still kind of leads me to like this initial reaction of like, there are tons of people asking like, should I buy VR? And
Not now.
I don't know. Like, I think PlayStation VR will be kind of the test for that stuff. Like, what people's appetite is for, VR in bigger games, but also like VR as this kind of one-off, or these smaller experiences and that sort of stuff. Because like that PlayStation VR launch, like there's going to be a VR part to Call of Duty.
Yeah.
They're going to have their little Valkyrie, like little space flight stuff. So, but that's going to be a small thing, like Resident Evil. Theoretically, you'll play that whole game in VR if you want to.
I think
there are going to be those types of experiences available. But I think when they, I think they do VR a disservice in a way by attaching a lot of those. There was a story that was like, hey man, we need new superheroes. Like, fuck Batman, fuck all this stuff. Like, VR is its own medium, it's its own language. Stop trying to cram characters from outside. I think that's an extreme view. But at the same time, like that Batman thing I tried at VR in VR back at E3, like just felt like it was the wrong approach. It felt like it was a company, like a big company coming and going, well, we got to make a VR thing, and not really getting what makes that magical. But at the same time, the Batman thing feels like the closest, because it is a little goofball. It is a little like, based on your interactions with your hands and a lot of this other stuff where like, I don't know, looking down someone's top in Final Fantasy and this weird shooter without head tracking, whatever that thing is. Like that Final Fantasy stuff seems like not something that people would really gravitate to.
No.
But it's a big name that will theoretically sell headsets.
I wonder if you lose something with these iconic characters, though, like Batman, or, like I'm trying to picture, like, imagine playing a Mario game in VR, But I want to see Mario.
Totally.
And also, I don't want to play third-person games in VR, I'm finding. Like, the more of those I see, I have not been impressed by a lot of those.
I think there's some interesting stuff you can do in third person, but generally, I think you're right. Yeah, it's like you are the character. Things are happening to you. Like that's the best use of that, because you do have a body. You have hands. You have a head. You have that form of tracking. Like
it's good for like Gordon Freeman stuff.
Yeah, using it for just a camera seems like a waste in a lot of ways. So yeah, like a third person thing, I think that can still look cool and be neat.
Yeah.
So I think people shouldn't necessarily shy away, especially this early. People need to try everything and figure it out.
But I picture some things like, let's say, like a Journey type of game, where that character is not necessarily iconic. There's I can imagine that in first person being kind of cool. But something like a Batman or Mario or something, I want to see those characters.
You want to see Batman kicking someone's ass? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I tend to agree. I guess that stuff is a little weird. But that Batman stuff was first person.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And I'm sure, there's iconic characters. You can see the Joker, you can see Gotham
Right,
City
yeah,
or whatever, but, it'll work for some games, it won't for others.
Yeah. I'm going to be interested to see how the PlayStation VR launch happens, because I think that's going to be one of the widest arrays of games from the widest swath of publishers.
And I think I'm going to get it. I think that is the one I'm going to buy.
I think it seems like a perfect entry level experience to this stuff. It seems like it's roughly. The fidelity is going to be different because of the camera, but it still all works. Like every time I've tried it, it's been fine.
The cost is the best.
Yeah.
I don't need a ton of wires going to a PC. I'm going to be living in an apartment in Manhattan for a little bit, so I'm not going to have enough space for like a room scale thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that actually seems like the most attractive to me, and I can imagine a lot of other people are in similar situations.
Totally.
You saw that with Kinect. A lot of people in small apartments that I can't clear this much space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I think PlayStation VR seems like it is the right product at the right time.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. We'll get one in here at some point. We'll put it through its paces, and they've got their launch software lineup that I think looks like really nicely varied.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm going to buy it. So I'm looking forward to that thing.
That's a little under a month away.
Yeah.
That's like 3 weeks or something, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
3.5 weeks.
And I'm going to get the Pro too, so I'll be interested to see if that makes
Yeah,
much of a
I guess
difference.
some games have, like, they're starting to build a list of games that are going to support it, which at some point everything will in one way or another.
Going forward, right?
Right, yeah. So that's not going to be, like, that's the mandate from Sony.
Well, like most of the old games, unless they are strictly like, hey, we are going to do stuff for the Pro, it's
Right,
not
they
going to
don't
do
have to.
anything
No.
for, if developers don't do anything extra, it's not
Then
going
it's
to
not gonna-
automatically
right, totally.
smooth the graphics or something.
No, definitely not. So, like, I think the developers of The Witcher came out and said, we're not going to support
right.
the Pro because we're working on Cyberpunk. We've got other stuff.
Right,
It's not
right.
worth it for us to go back and do this work, which I think makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But Call of Duty will support it. Farpoint will support it. So we'll see what benefits it has for VR. I think that's potentially interesting, and also maybe worrying. I think the narrative around the situation around the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro really seems founded on how much do you trust Sony as a gatekeeper to prevent people from putting garbage onto the base level PS4. Like, how low of a frame rate can someone get away with on a base PS4 when they're going into submission as a third party
still ship it.
and still ship it?
Inner Kung Fu VR.
Yeah,
Well-
I mean, you have to trust that Sony will not abandon the consumers that already bought the base model, and they will eventually. I mean, make no mistake. Like, the thing we're talking about here is, like, a few years down the line, you would picture that the install base may have shifted over to where
Yeah.
there are more pros than base, and maybe you could start to have that conversation about, like, hey, this is optimally run on the Pro. And the base level experience runs, but at a reduced this, and this. I could see them getting there in some years' time.
Well,
But
can't you look at their history of what they've allowed to be released on previous generations of their consoles? Like what they've allowed to go out on the PS3 once the PS4 has come out. It's a similar thing, right? Because if they allow, well, I mean, it's a different hardware.
It's a different thing because, like, this is still
It's
like
still a quality control thing, though. Somebody's making that decision. Like, let's not put that out on PS3. That's not going to run well enough. That's going to be PS4 only.
But I think the thing is once the focus changes, they care a little bit less. Like, I think more stuff gets through the door in the late days of a platform because at some point they're like, oh, you want to put out a game on this older thing? Go for it. Like, awesome, whatever. Yeah. We've sold all the units we're going to sell, and there's a great game library here already. So if this stuff maybe doesn't run as well, and then okay. Whereas this is a very different story because I think this will tell the tale of, like, will Sony abandon its existing audience, or how long will it take them to start to pivot away from the base model PS4?
there are so many of those base models out there.
There
You'd
are,
have to imagine
yeah.
that if they start aggressively moving away from it, it's going to be a while. It's not going to be anytime soon.
It would, yeah. And they've said exactly that they are, very much not leaving the base model behind.
Yeah.
It just they can say a lot of things. We're gonna have to see how it goes. So yeah. So at some point, that's like, well, okay, like VR has very specific requirements to keep you from getting sick. That everyone's gonna have to hit on the base model PS4. So at some point, you actually start to have the other conversation of, is the base model PS4 actually holding developers back at some point because they have to account for this lower spec in addition to their PS4 Pro build.
Right.
And at some point you go like, well, they have to make one for the Xbox One. They have to make, like most of these developers are making games for all platforms, and on the PC they're covering such a wide swath of configurations that maybe that's not that big of a deal.
But we never know how those resources are actually allocated, because it's like that argument when you see people complaining that a company put a multiplayer mode into a game. They're like, oh, why are they putting those resources in the multiplayer, not the main game? It's like, well, you don't know. You don't know if that would have affected anything necessarily.
They probably actually just got the bigger budget to do the multiplayer mode and got most of what they wanted for the single player anyway. It's probably
It's not
actually
one
a
at the
reduction.
expense of the other. So.
Though in some cases it may very well be.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people like to say with certainty that like,
Yeah,
everyone likes resources over to this thing. It's like, no,
everyone
you don't
likes
know
to say
that.
they know exactly how everything's done. That's just the nature of the internet.
Yeah,
Wrestling fandom, video
yeah.
games,
movies,
everything. That's all of it. Anyway, Rec Room is amazing.
Yep.
And I wonder if it will be amazing a second time.
I think we still have a lot that we have not seen yet.
I think at some point,
like
at some point it becomes like, let's go actually play the games instead of like the social interaction stuff. And paintball was really awesome. It felt really good.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's just walking around slapping dummies and throwing basketballs, there's a shelf life for that.
Yeah, that's all still pretty good. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we are going to come back and to actually talk about some of the games we've been playing, some Forza Horizon and stuff. So stay tuned. It's time to get the junk food out of your life.
Why?
Because there are healthier alternatives.
Is that supposed to convince me somehow?
What if I ran down some of these snacks for you?
Okay, I can eat a snack, so...
All right. This is just a small sample of some of the snacks you can get from the folks at NatureBox.
I'm ready to be convinced.
All right. These 3 words are going to change your life.
Oh, man, this is exciting.
Vanilla bean wafers.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I like a wafer.
Uh-huh. Flax fortune coins.
I like to enjoy good fortune.
Peanut butter nom-noms.
Could you mix the peanut butter nom-noms with the vanilla bean wafers? And
I mean, the world is your oyster.
If you put them both in your mouth at the same time.
I don't think they actually have oysters, to be honest. But they do have Kung Pao pretzels, strawberry lemonade fruit stars.
Kung Pao.
How about some dried mango?
Okay.
Just some dried fruit. Just simple stuff, you know?
I could get down with some dried fruit.
Dried fruit is fantastic.
It's pretty good.
But I don't have time to dry fruit.
No.
But the folks at NatureBox do.
They do the drying for you.
They will dry that fruit and send it to you in the mail. Tasty snacks, simple ingredients right to your door.
I can get down with all that.
Uh-huh. They've got over 100 to choose from, and you can head over to naturebox.com/bombcast, pick some snacks, and then enjoy.
That sounds healthy and easy.
Exactly. You will get 2 free snacks when you go to that URL.
Healthy, easy, and free.
No, free is
that's the key ingredient.
Capital F-R-E. Naturebox.com/bombcast is where you go to hook up those free snacks. This offer will not last. Act today. 2 free snacks, and then a potential lifetime of snacks showing up in the mail for you to enjoy.
Kung Pao.
Kung Pao indeed. Naturebox.com/bombcast. All right, we are back. Why don't we talk about some video games?
I like those.
Yeah.
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 I played those a lot.
I have been playing Forza Horizon 3.
Oh, please tell me.
It's good.
Yeah?
They made another Forza Horizon game.
Great.
A lot of the same ideas and kind of side stuff and bonus stuff that you expect from those games is totally represented here. You know, but I think that for me, the key thing is that Australia, like the world they created is fun to drive around.
Okay.
Which that was my problem with Forza Horizon 2. I just didn't like the world. Like it just, the area just didn't seem fun to drive around. Like I got really bored with that stuff really quickly.
Wasn't it like European farmland or something, like some festival in Europe? Yeah, and this one's Australia, right?
Yeah, this is Australia. Okay. So you get like a kind of beachfront town. There's a lot of like beach driving. There's a lot of off-road stuff in this. That I want to say they sold Rally DLC for the first game, and I think they may have done it for the second one as well. This one seems like a little more like, hey, there's just going to be some trucks in this game.
Great.
And you can drive around on the beach. So if you want to take like some super car and just fucking spin Brodies on the beach, you can totally do it.
There's like pickup trucks?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some of that in there. The Halo Warthog is in there somewhere.
Like the actual license? I guess that makes sense, yeah.
You might have to I'm not sure how you get that.
I would feel weird about controlling, as someone who's playing through the first Halo right now.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Controlling
not
the Warthog with the triggers would be weird.
Right. But you can use the Warthog horn with any car.
Okay.
They have unlockable horns and then paid DLC to unlock the horns early, which is
What?
It's just straight up purchase horn accelerator to accelerate your unlocking of the horns.
I got a horn doubler.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is pretty crazy, but just don't buy it, I guess. Like, you can unlock it with skill points. It's not like you shouldn't do that.
I would pay extra for the Trackmania.
Oh man, yeah. I actually probably would too now that you mention it. So I've only seen it on Xbox One. They have not provided us with the PC version just yet. It's out next week. Actually, I guess it's technically out Friday. If you buy the $100 version of the game, you can start playing on Friday.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, if you're like a big Forza player, you're probably going to want all the DLC anyway. So at some point, that adds up to the $100 you would spend on this. So it's like, if you know you would play a Forza Horizon game, this is a good one. So
Sure.
might as well. But yeah, it's the same type deal. Like in this game, you are the boss of the festival from like a story perspective for what you would, I guess, call a story.
Are you picking up flyers and stuff to advertise your festival? Or?
No. You're kind of, as you drive around, you're building fans, and then as you get too many fans to fit in a space, then it's like, okay, we need to expand the festival to another location, and that's going to open another set of races.
And you
so
build
on
another
and so
part
forth.
of your oil rig.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So
then,
wait, you're a performer and you were the owner of the thing?
Yeah.
You're like Billy Corgan with TNA.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You're out there driving around, winning races.
I see.
But also,
Okay.
yeah, and it looks fantastic. It's just such a great looking game. Like I said, I've been playing on the Xbox One. We saw the PC version running at E3. I hope that it runs like that on my machine at home when we do get the PC version. Because damn,
Still running pretty good on the Xbox One?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's just just great looking cars, good looking environments, and yeah, I'd say that like there's some stuff that I wish was faster, and I'm hoping installed to an SSD that it'll actually solve. So that you eventually unlock the Horizon promo stuff, which is where you want to take a picture of every single individual car in the game for money, and you eventually, it's like another kind of side thing to do.
Okay.
Pokemon Snap for cars. But the process of getting into and out of photo mode, like just the loads are a little too long to the point where I've stopped doing it because I'm thinking like, I bet that'll be faster on the PC. I'm just going to wait. But yeah, it's, I guess the thing I would say is, they still have the showcase races where you've got like, hey, here's a goofy race. Did you play the previous games?
Not really, no.
Okay. Well, they've got, hey, you're going to race against a train, or hey, you're going to race against an airplane. And the airplane's kind of taking wider turns so you can pass it on the straights, but then it's faster than you on its own straightaways. So it's kind of flying. It basically becomes a time attack. Like the airplane, you're not racing against the airplane.
Yeah.
It's more like the airplane's going to take about this long to finish the race, and it's probably going to adjust its path to make sure you've got a shot at winning.
You're not checking it into a wall or anything.
No.
like that. Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't do that. It's a Forza game, and that's not going to.
That's how I play Forza.
You can.
I have
but
a great drivatar.
Well, yeah, me too. But I don't know, those showcase events always felt like I win by a split second every single time, almost like it's built that way, and it just feels fake. So I've done 2 of the showcase races in this one so far, and I think they're just kind of lame. Like they were awesome, and they were a really awesome spectacle in the first game, where you're just like, oh man, this game's crazy. It's certainly not Forza Motorsport. Like it was a good way to like let you know up front, like this is going to be weird. But now it just, I don't know, like the blueprint is so similar that you just look at it and go like, all right, these are just 5 races that are strewn about the game that are like supposed to be these big moments that you build up to. And, oh, I finally leveled up and unlocked enough fans for the next showcase race. And this thing's just kind of a letdown. Oh, well, at least like the rest of the game is super fun. So, yeah, I don't know.
It just seems like window dressing.
Yeah, totally. Like, but they present it in such a way that it's supposed to be a big deal.
Okay.
And I wish that they had better big deals in the game.
Okay.
If I have not played the Horizon games, I played a couple of the older Forza games, and I really enjoyed that Fast and the Furious thing they put out, that free thing.
Yeah.
Is that more along the lines of a Horizon?
Yeah,
Like not taken seriously?
That was Horizon 2.
Okay.
That was the world from Horizon 2 with those cars put into
Okay,
it.
I like that a
yeah.
lot. So like from what I saw at E3, that game looked gorgeous, and like you said, the locations and everything look cool. So I think I actually want to dive into this one.
I would absolutely. It's a great open world racing game.
Cool.
How does the open world stuff, like moment to moment, work?
So there's, it's not filled with a ton of side stuff. Some of it gets a little goofy. So you always see a lot of other racers racing around, and it'll just slap like the gamer tags of your people on your friends list onto them, whether they've played the game or not. Which, playing the game before it's out, I only have like 2 people on my friends list that were playing the game, and you'd see that they would have a higher level. And that was meaningful for it when you're building a crew or whatever, but it's not that big a deal. The goofy thing, though, is that like I would be driving like 235 miles an hour down like the longest like stretch of highway. Like basically like there's a highway across this swath of Australia that you just fucking barrel down. And it's awesome. You just get going super fast. The sense of speed is really amazing in the faster cars. But I'm passing like the same person over and over again. It's just like, oh, there's Kessler again. Like every 20 seconds, it's Matt Kessler in another car
Lapping
who I
you
know is not playing this first-party Xbox game, just flying past me over and over again.
Lapping you on a straightaway?
Yeah, basically. But miraculously, seemingly in different cars every time.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty awesome. It's like, oh, there's Teasdale. Like, nope, that's not. He's finishing a game. That's definitely not. It's definitely not real.
Matt Kessler's magical. You never know.
That's a good point. So that's a little silly, but anyway, you see those other racers, you can drive up behind them and honk at them and start a convoy, which is fun.
What?
So like, they'll follow you around and they'll suggest races and be like, hey, you want to race to this spot? And you activate and then and then you and your convoy race off to something. There are skill perks where you get more skills while you're in a convoy, which is kind of neat. And supposedly convoys will help you find secret stuff. I tried that and didn't have amazing luck with it, but I'm not sure. The game's got billboards, like little like off to the side of the road, small boards, not actual billboards.
Not Burnout Paradise.
Not Burnout Paradise billboards. But they've had this in the past.
But they are smashable.
Yeah, you smash them for XP. So there's 150 of those around the world for you to find. There are barn finds, which every so often something will come up and say, hey, somewhere in this area there's a sweet-ass old car that is just rusting away in this barn. You should find it.
Oh,
that's been in previous ones, right?
Cool. Yeah, all this stuff has been in the previous games. Okay. I'd say like the vast majority of this game, like if you've played those games, you know exactly what you're getting into.
Okay.
This is another great installment in the Forza Horizon franchise. And they've got their online stuff, which I haven't spent a lot of time with because the game is not out. They had some scheduled times that just didn't work out, and I kind of want to see the PC version before I really kind of get too much deeper into it. So yeah, they've got an online co-op campaign, which seems like a really cool thing to have.
Yeah.
Because the races are a little dry. You've got I think it's like 65 different races across the game, or standard races. They're also like midnight races and other things, kind of other types of races around the world, but kind of 65 kind of main events. And you can race those as part of a multi-race championship. You can do exhibition races. And then there's like rival races, which are like, get all the AI off the road and kind of set a time that then gets sent to someone else so they can try to race it and all this other stuff. You can kind of create your own versions of those races. I actually got really excited for a sec because in the tutorial early on, it's like, all right, now go to create a race blueprint. And I'm like, oh, fucking awesome. I'm going to plot a course around this open world. But it's actually just like, do you want to do 3 laps or 2 laps? No. Do you want to restrict it to different types of cars? You can do that. Set the time of day and weather. Like that stuff's cool. You can name it, and then when you go up to an exhibition race, other people's created blueprints will be surfaced in there.
So it's just like a custom option template, or
yeah,
whatever,
totally.
Right?
And it'll show the person's name who created it, which I think is kind of cool. And you can name it whatever you want within reason. I tried to name mine. What did I try to name it?
Mod Nation Racer.
Mod Nation Racer. No, I named it. Well, anyway, it's got a word filter in it. Let's just say that. So, you can't go too far. There was one that I tried to create that it should have worked, but it was actually a knock on their name filter, and it caught that.
Wow.
It didn't actually have any dirty words in it. I think it was just like name filter restricted, whatever. Anyway, I forget what I actually named it, but anyway. Yeah, it's a great-looking driving game. I think if people are in the market for a great-looking driving game, like, there aren't a lot of those out anymore, and this is a really good one. I think Horizon is kind of become my favorite type of Forza, like more so than motorsport, like the kind of less serious nature of it and kind of just having fun in the cars. Like, it just feels a little more lived in, and just at its best, it feels just more alive than just like, all right, car, number of laps, track, go.
There's clearly an audience for the more like carhead type stuff, but yeah.
But this still has a lot of that stuff. This doesn't necessarily like throw all that shit away. Like the underpinnings of it are still very much Forza and that level of assistance or not, depending on how you want to drive it. And it handles like a Forza game.
Well, so with the defining characteristic that separates it from the main series, would you call it like less realism, less seriousness?
Yeah. But at the same time, like it doesn't go all the way. It doesn't have goofy full motion video cutscenes. Like I almost wish that they would go further in that direction because there are parts of this game that I would still say, compared to Need for Speed, for better or worse, like Forza's a little dry.
Okay.
Even Horizon is still a little dry by comparison. But I always think of motorsport as just being bone dry. And they've done their stuff where like, hey, there's we're going to set up some bowling pins and you're going to drive around the Top Gear test track or whatever, and these British men are going to tell you about these cars. Like, they're trying to bring liveliness to it around that sort of stuff. But I still think motorsport just feels like kind of a stick in the mud compared to even Horizon. So yeah, I don't know. Like Horizon just feels like a more lived-in style of car game. It's a little more. It's a little more what I'm looking for. I wish that they would go over the top weird. Honestly, like if they could make the Amped 3 of driving games.
Okay. What about the Dark Summit?
Sure.
All right.
I guess. Why not?
I think I liked the Fast and the Furious one because Ludacris was yelling at me for most of the game.
Yeah. So this is a British lady, I think, yelling at you for most of the game.
Is it Lady Sovereign?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, you nailed it. No, I wish it was Lady Sovereign. That would. No, that'd probably be pretty bad. That actually probably wouldn't work out so well. Maybe she could pull it off. I don't know.
I don't know why that's the first British lady I thought of.
The only British lady as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that game is technically out on Friday or Tuesday, depending on how much you want to pay for it. And yeah, I'll write a review of it at some point, but I want to see the PC version before we kind of dive too much deeper into it.
What's the story with all that Microsoft stuff? Is it you buy it once, you get it everywhere? Or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So it is part of the Xbox Play Anywhere. So, the reason I don't have it is, because this is still pre-release and all this other stuff. Recore, when they sent out Recore, actually it was both versions immediately as soon as we redeemed the keys that they sent over. We had both. And so it just shows up on your list of Windows 10 store apps, and you can just install it like you could any other Windows 10 app. Minesweeper, yeah. Well, the Solitaire with free-to-play microtransactions.
I think this will be my first Windows Store game because I'm going to get this, and I've not played Recore or what was Quantum Break was.
Quantum Break was
ones.
a little different. So now the difference is that you make one purchase and get it both places. With Quantum Break, it was more like, hey, if you pre-order it, we will send you a code for the PC version. So now it's like one code gets you both.
Right.
If you were to enter it with a code, but one purchase gets you both versions of the game.
Are they committing to the same day?
That is what it's been so far.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm expecting they anyway, as part of the vagaries of the review process, they mentioned that we would be able to see the PC version sometime this week, which I'm taking to mean any day now. Maybe that won't be until Friday, but I don't actually know. I need to check with them and find out.
So is that through the Xbox app on Windows? Because I don't even know the first thing I need to do to get a Windows game. I do everything through Steam.
No, so you can do it there, but there's also a store app that installs to Windows 10.
It's just the standard store app for getting
exactly
any number of apps.
Yeah, where you download the Netflix app for Windows 10 style, or
Okay.
It's all in there. And Recore's in there right now. You can buy it there, and then it'll show up in your Xbox One games list as well.
Okay.
And that stuff has been really convenient. I know that people want everything to be in Steam. So the minute you tell them oh, it's a Windows 10 only game and it's only in the Windows Store and it's not in Steam, they're just like, ugh. Which I don't know. I guess I like the idea of having one games list in a single place.
Yeah.
That makes sense, but Steam is still an app you have to leave running, whereas these things that install out of the store, I just hit the Windows key and type in Recore and hit return, and it runs Recore.
That's pretty cool.
Which I guess actually some Steam apps do still install the start menu that way, but it just shows up at the start menu, you just launch it, it's there, it's done. The only reason that would be more of a hassle for people is if they aren't logged into a Microsoft account at the OS level.
Yeah, I don't think I am because I don't want all that. It's I don't even know how to turn off Cortana. There was some update that happened, and it's constantly hey, do you want to know when Alaskan Flight 82 lands? It's no, I don't give a shit. How do I make Cortana shut up?
I think you just right-click Cortana and hit turn off Cortana.
I've tried. I went into properties,
and there's you can straight up turn Cortana. I have Cortana.
I've done that in
off.
previous Windows, but and since it did some update, I've not been able to turn it off. So I think I turned off any kind of Microsoft account stuff on the OS level. So I'm sure I'm going to have to do some shit to get Forza running.
Yeah, that's I'm the only person who uses my PC, so it makes sense for me to have one account. It's actually kind of a hassle for us here when it comes time to like, oh, let's do Killer Instinct, and it's like, okay, I need to log into the store with my Microsoft account and then download the app. But then at some point I want to log out because now people can just go buy shit on my account, and I don't want any of you assholes doing that.
Right.
So that stuff is a hassle if in our specific case.
Yeah.
But as someone who's just using a PC at home and stuff like that, it's been fine.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, Forza Horizon 3 seems really good. I want to play a lot more of it. And my early recommendation is a recommendation, I guess I would say.
Great.
So
I'll take that recommendation.
Let's warp back in time real quick here. Tokyo Game Show happened.
Yes.
So they showed off Rez Infinite there. And obviously they've shown it off before, but so Brad and I played Rez Infinite Area X.
Is that a new area?
Which is the new area made exclusively for Rez Infinite.
When you say new area, is it a stage or a cluster of stages?
It's a stage.
Okay.
It's a stage. And so it is. We played it in VR. We played it in the PlayStation VR stuff, and it's awesome.
Really?
Is this what you were talking about during the PAX panel but couldn't talk about?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's everything that you wanted, everything that I wanted Rez to be when Rez first came out. You think about Rez, like, if you really break Rez down, it's just kind of Panzer Dragoon without the ability to manually turn. It's, it's lock-on targeting, hit and release, all that sort of stuff. There's a ton of style wrapped around it in a way that makes it feel so much larger than that. And adding VR takes that to like a whole other level of like, because now you actually can turn anywhere, and you are kind of actually controlling the character, and you have a boost, and you can kind of move in reverse.
Regardless of like Area X or the old stuff?
In Area X. Old stuff is going to be old stuff.
Okay.
Area X is the new stuff. It is the kind of thing they built for, hey, what if we were making Rez today, let's see what we would do with VR and do all this other stuff. So it is this new stage, new music, a new boss.
Like how substantial is it when you say a stage as someone who hasn't played a lot of Rez? Is that like a 5-minute thing?
It's, let's say it's maybe 20 to 30, somewhere around there,
okay.
I guess.
That's more substantial than...
That might be overselling it. It felt like 20 to 30.
Okay.
I don't actually know. It could be more like 15 or something like that. But I think some of that depends on how well you play. And so the mechanics are very similar. Like you're still looking around and targeting things, but you can play Rez Infinite, the old stages, in VR as well. And you can do kind of targeting with the controller or look around and do it.
That's what they had at PSX, right? That I played that, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool. It felt like Rez was wrapped around you. This feels like a sequel to Rez. This feels like if they were to make this feels like a taste of things to come, which I think they're kind of almost billing it as.
Okay.
Which means I think they're gonna make another Rez at some point. Like you look at this thing and you go like, you have to make another Rez. You have to do this. Like this thing is too good, but also like it's this tantalizing little thing that's added to this existing game, and you're like, okay, now you need to take that and make it a full product. It's really awesome. As a huge fan of Rez, as someone who like feels incredibly strongly and damn near emotionally about Rez, Area X is fucking incredible, and one of the coolest things I've done in VR, I would say.
Wow.
Mostly as a result, I'd say, of me being a very big fan of Rez. I think there will be people that come away from this and go like, whatever, it's still a on rails kind of shooter thing. You're moving around, but it is kind of still moving you through a level.
It seems like a game that VR benefits greatly.
Definitely.
Because I never played the original release of Rez, but it came out on XBLA years ago.
Right.
And I remember everyone freaked out about Rez when it first came out.
Yep.
And I never really played it, or if I did, I was just kind of like, oh, what the hell is this?
It was Sega at the height of its style phase. It was like Jet Set Radio, like the years. It was Sega's crazy years where they had split up into all these different teams of like Sega Rosso and UGA and all these different teams that were doing all these different games, and they were kind of left to their own devices to make their own weird shit. And it's the stuff that when Sega in Japan was like firing on all cylinders, making games for a system that no one wanted to own. And eventually all that fell apart, and all those creators went off and did their own thing and left. Yu Suzuki, I don't think he's at AM2. He's off doing his own thing for Shenmue 3 and all this other stuff. a lot of those people have kind of gone into the wind and started their own companies.
Yeah.
Miz is it, was it Rehance Games now is the name of the company.
That's the company that's making Rez HD?
Rez Infinite.
Rez Infinite, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rez HD was the XBLA one that I
Right.
played, and I don't know what it was. I just didn't really like it that much. And I was confused because I felt like I wasn't seeing something that everyone else was raving about. And then when I did the VR thing at PSX, that kind of clicked for me. So if that could turn me from not really getting Rez to okay, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
I'd imagine if you really liked Rez to begin with, it has to be amazing.
It is. And yeah, this Area X stuff is awesome. They put out a trailer. There's stuff up on their site. I mean, I think it's the sort of. I haven't seen the trailer. I don't know how it's going to look to people who haven't tried it. I think a lot of this VR stuff, people are just like fucking whatever.
Yeah.
But as a big Rez fan, it was exactly what I wanted to see in terms of more Rez and expanding upon the concepts of Rez. It just looked fucking awesome. Holy shit.
So far beyond just the stuff you saw of the old game in VR.
I mean, the
old
Rez at this point is just that's just burned into some part of my memory at this point.
Right.
The first couple of stages in the Lost area are just that's just, I just know those. And so seeing those in VR is cool, but at some point you're seeing it and going oh wow, okay, this is still Rez. Whereas this is a sequel to, this is more Rez. They made more Rez. That on its own is amazing to me. So I was kind of at a loss for words after doing the demo, and I still kind of am. It's
wow.
And I think that's something that either you care about Rez that way or you don't. And I think there will definitely be people that come away from it thinking that I'm out of my fucking mind.
Okay.
But
wasn't Brad kind of blown away too?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not here this week to talk about it, but yeah, it's real fucking good.
Okay.
But it's also really good in terms of I think what it means for the potential future of Rez. As someone who very much wants to see more Rez, this was more Rez, and I think it could very well lead to them making more Rez.
Do you think they'd do that? Do you think they would go Rez 2 or some other inspired by this but more?
Well, so they did Child of Light, which Ubisoft published,
thing, right?
which was a Kinect thing that was not entirely dissimilar to Rez, but it wasn't Rez. And so I think that there's something about the aesthetic, the style of the music. There's something about the way that game fits together that Child of Light didn't really capture, that I think if you were to make something and say this was inspired by Rez, I just don't think it would be the thing. I liked Child of Light just fine, but it wasn't Rez, which is a high bar to hold anything to. It's unfair, but holy shit. If we're entering a world where they might get to make more Rez, that's fucking awesome.
Well, now, is this a launch game for PSVR?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay, so all the stuff you're describing will be playable right when
I think
VR
that's
comes
all
out.
coming out as part of the thing. I'm thrilled to play that full game in VR. We've seen it a few times now, and I played through one of the stages back at PSX, and then they showed it off again, showed off another stage, I think during GDC, which I didn't actually sit down and play because I was just look, I know Rez. I know I'll play this later in a I was gonna say in a dark room, but I will put the dark room on my face, I guess.
Yes.
That's the thing. And this new area I think is awesome. In some weird ways, it's I'm kind of bummed out because I've already seen the new stuff now.
Oh, yeah.
So,
nothing to be surprised by.
But I will happily play it again. That's Rez kind of became one of those games that I would return to every year, couple of years, something like that.
A skill thing, trying to improve a score, or just
No,
an experience?
Just an experience.
Yeah.
There's a mode in that game originally that is actually just turns off the ability to die.
Oh, okay.
You just want to cruise through it and watch it, and that's a perfectly acceptable way to play that game.
Huh.
I mean, obviously, there are ways to shoot everything down and not get hit and all that sort of stuff. There is a skill to it, but that's never been why I play Rez. So, yeah, that thing, I'm almost sweating a little bit talking about it.
Jeez.
But that's you have to take into account that is just how I feel about Rez.
Yeah.
That there's a lot out there. I think this thing is really awesome, and I think it'll be a really good VR showpiece because it'll be a cool, trippy, fucking loud music, pulsating synesthesia experience.
Be a good showpiece.
Yeah. But I'm also telling you that as like someone who I have multiple trance vibrators and bought the Rez headphones that they shipped alongside the game that were in limited editions in Japan. And, they put out those fucking t-shirts recently that they're going to sell along with this stuff with like a physical copy of the game. And I was like, I don't want a physical copy of the game, but I want all these. They're putting out a sick ass art book with new stories about Rez. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get that and read that. Like I'm that guy for Rez. So,
all right.
Take that into account, I guess. And then Boxmaker, real quickly. For $4 on Steam, you can buy a pretty shameless Super Mario Maker clone called Boxmaker that seems to come out of Japan.
China.
Come out of China.
Also on the App Store.
Also on the App Store and on Android for free as a free-to-play thing. I think it's been out there for a little while. This thing, and I guess it's stealing a lot of art and assets out of MapleStory as well.
Oh, really?
But there's just straight up it's like they listened to the Mario music, composed a song that would fit with the Mario music, and then removed the Mario music.
But then put the Mario music back in when you're placing coins.
Yeah.
And also like the bullet bill sound effects.
Right. Yeah. There's a bunch of stolen assets in that thing from the looks of it, and but you know what it has? Like people have tried to make Super Mario Maker clones since. Some more direct ones, homebrew things, and stuff like that. This has the someone in the comments of our quick look, I think, mentioned this, is that they have the infrastructure for sharing levels. You can upload levels to a server and other people can play them, which is the key part of Mario Maker. Without that, then you're like, okay, now I need to find other people and force my level upon them, and they go, here, install these files and do this and drag it here, and and no one wants to do that.
This even has like the clear rate percentages and things like that. Like I'm not sure if you can comment on stuff, but when you die,
you totally can comment on stuff. It's
when you die, all the red X's show up everywhere.
It's I think it's technically not illegal because of the way copyright law and trademark and all this other stuff works. Actually, the stolen assets would be stolen assets, but the idea of making this game on its own, I don't think is actually against the law. It's just nefarious. That is not me telling you to buy it because I think it's such a shameless clone that I actually maybe think people shouldn't buy it.
And there's like no controller support.
They added controller support over the weekend.
Okay, let's take another look.
It still controls like shit.
Oh, weird. The one button thing, no run.
That doesn't matter so much in a platformer.
Yeah, totally. Who would want that? Anyway, that's a quick look that people should go watch if they haven't, just because it's so fucking weird.
Yep.
And I actually played it. I actually uploaded a level over the weekend. I made a level. It's bad. It's a short level. It's not a good level, but it's just like
it does the thing where you have to beat it to upload it.
It does. Yeah. All right. What about you, Dan? You been playing much of anything?
A lot of the stuff that I've just talked about. Halo, Picross, Dead Rising,
Halo, Picross,
BioShock. Halo, Picross. Actually, yeah, I would. It's just all helmets.
Just chip out a big helmet.
Yeah.
Warthog.
Yeah, about to beat Halo 1. I don't know if it was the anniversary one or because there was an Halo 1 anniversary and then that's what went into the Master Chief Collection, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the library was just the worst level in the world before. It was the super directionless one. Do you remember that from the first one?
I mean,
the flood everywhere.
I know it's the thing that everyone talks about, but I don't specifically remember it being a huge problem in Halo 1.
I hated it. It seemed so directionless in the original one. And here I'm surprised. Like I tried to Google to look up all the changes they made because we flew through it no problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they just added little arrows to the floor.
Oh,
because we were never. It's like, oh, okay, we need to go through this little tunnel first, then we'll go to the other floor, and it made it just a billion times better.
What graphics were you playing on, new or old?
We switched back and forth, and we noticed the arrows on the floor went away when we went to the old graphics.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So it was way easier. We have one level left, and then we're gonna go on to 2. Game's still really good.
Yeah.
For a game that's 15 years old, there's little weird things about it that are annoying, but overall, damn, that's a really good game.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of old games lately between Halo and Dead Rising and BioShock. I've been doing Minerva's Den for the first time.
Oh yeah,
I think I'm about halfway through it. It's cool.
I played through it. It came up as like a game of the year thing the year it came out, and I ended up spending some time with it. But it was in such a fevered haze of working my way through a bunch of games during Game of the Year that it wasn't especially memorable. It was like, this thing's really cool, but I should probably go back and play that. What? So this remaster.
Yeah.
What are you playing it on?
I'm on PlayStation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I hear the PC versions of those games are kind of bad in a few ways.
I've heard like Ben Hansen said he had like 4 hard crashes and he just gave up on it.
Well, it's like it's missing a lot of options that even the original releases on PC had.
Oh wow,
so
they're like stripped it down.
Yeah, so they're kind of patching in, FOVs, some of the standard stuff that people want in a PC version of a game, but
I remember
also
that being a big thing, like the original BioShock coming out and not having
maybe you're right.
a lot of weird stuff.
But they replaced the sound engine. It was using like EAX before, and it's using Fmod now. And so they're like comparison videos that are like, hey, all this music sounds way worse now.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of a weird thing.
Jeez.
That's neither here nor there. That's out there. I don't necessarily have an opinion on that.
So it's a separate download on like Steam? Like there's 2 listings for each BioShock game?
Because you can buy them separately if you want.
Huh, okay. For like, it's like 20 each or something. Or maybe I'm thinking of Dead Rising. Not sure.
Right.
Or maybe it's the same for both. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's cool. Like the first BioShock has way more, hey, go through this museum of concept art and character models and stuff like that.
Is that stuff cool?
It's cool. It's a small little room where you can walk around and just look at a thing for a second.
Oh, I thought you were talking about BioShock as being look at our art as you walk around the game.
Oh, no.
Not actual new. I was like, yeah, totally. That's exactly what that campaign is. Is like you walk around and go, look at this. It's water out here.
What a cool environment.
Yeah.
I like cool art.
I think they're good games.
No, I mean, dude, no. I really liked BioShock 1.
I like 1 and Infinite a lot.
I liked Infinite. Like,
I've been playing through that again, too.
Yeah. 2 is not terrible.
It's not a bad game in its own right. It just feels a little, what's the best way to put it? Uninspired.
Sure.
The first, like the locations of 1 and Infinite are so memorable and awesome. And for 2 to just be like, here's an all right game in that place again.
Right.
Like it just feels a little uninspired,
Yeah. 2 doesn't have the multiplayer, does it?
Not in the
remaster?
collection thing.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
Did they do graphic stuff to this? Does it look better? And
I mean, it looks the way I remember it looking, which maybe indicates that they did stuff to it.
Yeah.
Because whenever you see, like...
it came out a while ago.
Yeah, like the Master Chief Collection stuff. It's like, yeah, this is how I remember it looking. And then you hit the back button and it's like,
you're
oh
like,
my
what?
fucking God.
What is this, Quake 2?
That's 2 platforms back instead of 1.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, it looks the way I remember it looking. Like Infinite was a gorgeous game when it came out. And this looks pretty much exactly how I remember it. So
yeah. I liked Infinite at the time. I think a lot of people turned on that game.
I didn't understand the backlash. I thought that game was great.
I think, it's a lot of people that are looking at games going like all these choices are actually false choices. And, like all these possibilities are not actually possibilities.
Well, it's telling a story. It's not like a branching path thing. It's not Mass Effect. It has you choose, what was the thing? Like choose the bird or the key or the cage or whatever.
Like a few things like that.
Yeah, but it didn't really matter. They had a story to tell,
Yeah.
So those games are still great. If you haven't played them before, like this is a good way to do it. Same thing with Dead Rising.
Cool.
Dead Rising's really fun still, turns out.
Yeah, I keep looking at Dead Rising going, maybe I should go back and play some Dead Rising, but I don't know.
Play 2 off the record.
Yeah.
That's been the main one I've been playing. Like I've kind of been dinking around with all of them. But 2 off the record is definitely my favorite one right now.
Yeah, maybe I'll give that a look. All right. How about you, Drew?
I played through the entirety of Event Zero.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which I believe Danielle Riendo talked about on the Beastcast.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've heard that, I haven't heard that. So I'm going to probably say a lot of same things over again.
All right.
But that's a cool game. It is on Steam. It is $20, and it is you walking through a derelict spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
And the only interaction you have is typing on terminals to the ship's AI.
Okay, yeah, I that's the screenshots of it look like a lot of terminal windows and old-timey looking computers.
Yeah, it is not all of that though. Like it's not like a hacking game where you're spending all the time on the machines. You're up there, like each terminal you're at for 20 seconds to a couple minutes, and then you're moving on. To walk around the world and look for clues. But there's no inventory. I don't even think there's any interaction. There's no use button outside from the terminal. So you're telling the AI to open door 10.
Okay.
And that's all you say. It's all natural language that you're typing into the keyboard, which is really impressive because you're communicating with this AI thing. It's really well done.
That's cool.
Yeah, and the story's kind of cool, and there are puzzles. I mean, that's kind of what the game is.
Yeah.
And I think it's really well done. It took me about 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
All right.
And yeah, I find myself more and more wanting those games that are like little morsels.
Sure. Yeah. Like here's a kind of a complete thought, but you can sort of get through it in a few hours and move on to something with different mechanics and all this sort of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And it varies your location up about as often as you kind of need.
Mm-hmm.
And there's it messes with your expectations about like, should I trust this guy? Should I not? Like
Sure,
you flip
yeah.
back and forth a couple of times. The story's pretty good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
And
Yeah,
that's-
I'll give that a look. It feels like it's going to maybe be a typing game kind of week because there's that, and Hack Mud I think is out this week,
Okay.
which I have not looked at, but looks like it could be awesome. So
Yeah, screenshots of that also.
Yeah.
Pretty text heavy.
yeah, absolutely.
I want to mention Rive as well.
Oh right, yeah.
That game's pretty cool.
Hmm.
What
Yeah,
is that?
You're kind of in a little blaster master thing, going around these areas. It's really hard. Like when you start, the only option is hard mode.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a thing they're leaning into.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of upgrades and stuff. It's 2D. There are like parts where there's no gravity, and it basically turns into like an asteroids. Well, more like a dual stick shooter, basically. Left to move, right to shoot.
Mhm.
But then there's a lot of just jumping around on the ground, swarms of enemies, leveling up your ship. It's good. It's a really weird game, just the way it plays and the way it feels. Like jump is on L2. Like just some weird choices and stuff.
Well, it
But
makes sense if it's going to be a dual joystick shooter. Sometimes you probably don't want to take your hand off of the right stick, right?
I guess that's a good point. And then also the face buttons are used for switching between like what your R2 thing is, whether it's the missile
okay.
salvo or the Kessler attack, which the Kessler attack is an attack in the game, spelled that same way. It's a good attack.
Does it shoot bananas? Like what is it?
It just shoots a bunch of bouncy little
fucked up
balls.
old wallets.
No. Yes, that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great game.
Yeah. No, it's a good game, though. It came with this weird thing, like the press release or whatever that came with it. It was like, hey, this is our last game.
Right,
Like they
yeah.
put out a thing
Is
like
it-
publicly.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we're closing up shop. This
Yeah,
is
like
it.
making games is hard, and we really hope this game does well because a lot of things ride on it. And so you have to wonder, it's like, are they talking about like they're not going to stay in game development? They already said that. So are they like, hey, we need to make house payments or something? Like we need to pay people that made this game.
Their last game did not do especially well and kind of just set the course for like, well, we're in the middle of developing this game. We're going to finish it, but
That's rough.
yeah. Yeah.
it is a good
They
game,
put out a
though.
lot of statements about that stuff. That's been interesting to watch.
But yeah, I'll say it's a good game though. From what I played, I played about like 6 of the I think 12 or 13 missions, and yeah, it's fun. We have a quick look up on the site if anybody wants to check it out in action.
Yeah, I will give that a look. All right.
I also am pondering hard about buying even more flight accessories.
Oh,
I have.
Are you building a plane?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I've got.
do you have one of those hats?
with the Track IR hat?
No.
Oh, with the
leather
flaps.
hats with the flaps.
I got one of those in a mailbag, so yes.
Okay.
With the goggles.
With the goggles, yeah.
I've got a HOTAS set up already, so the joystick and the throttle.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought pedals for that. Then I bought, because I'm getting my pilot's license, I bought your civilian yoke, which looks kind of like it looks like a stun runner wheel.
Yeah.
Except the handles don't tilt independently.
Right.
It's just forward and back. And then I noticed that in my actual flight lessons, so the yoke has 3. All right, when you're in a plane, at least the plane I'm in, you have.
Which is some kind of Cessna, right?
It's a Cessna 172.
Okay.
You to increase the throttle, there's a little plunger that you push in, and then to throttle back, you pull the plunger out, and then there's another one,
almost like a choke on an old car.
exactly, and there's another one for mixture. And so it's really important to understand how that works. And many times in my lessons, I have done it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And on the yoke that I bought, there is no plunger. There are only these little levers on the top.
Oh.
And I kind of want to acclimate myself to the actual physical movement. So I'm considering buying it's this separate box that SciTech makes. Or
Yeah.
I guess Mad Catz now, and they just buy them.
I think that's right. Yeah. Well, not Mad Catz. Someone I think bought them from Mad Catz. Because I think Mad Catz is the company that's like going down.
Okay. Well, anyway.
I could be wrong, but anyway, yeah.
Somebody makes a box
Right.
that is just 3 plungers. Because there are planes also with prop pitch on a plunger as well.
Okay.
So I'm considering buying that.
How much is the plunger box?
Like $150.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Drew, if you get a pilot's license and you make or buy a plane, I've always kind of wondered this because I like jumping out of planes.
Yeah.
So if I bought a parachute and you had a plane, is it legal? Like, could I just like text you and you just come pick me up in your plane, take me up to 14,000 feet, I jump out and we just go about our days? Like, do you have to get a dropping off parachuter's license, or as long as you have a plane, are we just good to go?
I mean, theoretically, you could come with me in my plane and then just leave.
With my parachute. And you could
sure.
you could have plausible deniability and say, like, I didn't know he was going to jump out.
Right.
And then you're off the hook. And I'll
Right.
say, like, yeah, it was just crazy. I jumped out.
Hey, the thing is, you can't pay me for it.
Okay, I'm fine
yeah.
with not paying you. Get you beer or something. Afterwards.
Okay. All right,
Afterwards.
All right.
That
Okay.
sounds like a form of payment. I don't know that I can allow this.
Just a couple buds having a beer.
When you're up there, do you wear a parachute?
No.
Okay.
I did a it wasn't a course really. It was just like a flight with a dude who does aerobatic stuff
Mm-hmm.
in a different kind of plane, and we wore parachutes for that. And he gave me like a briefing, like, "Hey, when I start swearing, here's how to open the door, and then you fall out, and then wait 3 seconds, and then pull this thing, and then I'll follow you." That was intense.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Note. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
When you start swearing. Okay.
Yep.
And then at some point, did he like stub his toe on the pedal and go, "Oh fuck," and you were like, "Later."
No, although there was one point in that flight when, so he was behind me. I think I've told the story before, but he was behind me, and I was in front. So he couldn't see the dials, and he was relying on me to tell him like what airspeed and stuff were.
Okay.
And I guess he didn't ask me enough, so we were upside down, and we stalled.
Okay.
Basically,
That seems.
I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but the plane started like buffeting,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Why don't you increase the throttle a little more, or turn us back over?" And we did, and then he's like, "Yeah, I've only been in a inverted stall maybe once." So
It's probably not a place you want to be
yeah,
unless you're doing something real weird.
yeah.
Huh.
Jesus.
So that's your plane update.
Yeah. Cool. You still going like every week or so? Or
Trying to.
twice a week.
I'm trying to do at least twice a week, but it's tough this time of year because it's foggy in the mornings.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, slated to go twice this week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we take another break and we'll come back and get into news and then your emails.
Mm-hmm.
Going out and shopping for food is a hassle.
Who has time for it?
No one. In today's fast-paced economy, who can stop and burn the money
Yeah.
to simply shop for food?
Also, who can withstand that level of human interaction?
Exactly. Do away with all of that. Think of the germs.
Seriously.
Exactly. Get this food delivered to your door.
Ooh.
And then eat it.
Skip all the germs.
Exactly. Skip germs
Germ-free food.
with Blue Apron.
Ah, okay.
Not all ingredients are created equal. They've got fresh, high-quality ingredients that you can get. And basically, they send you the building blocks of food.
All right.
And then you assemble it. So you're kind of like learning to cook along the
So
way.
you're crafting the food?
Yes, you are. They send you a crafting recipe
Okay.
and the mats.
All right.
And then you assemble it into a proper meal.
And then you earn some XP?
And then
Somehow.
you get to eat some food.
Okay.
And then enjoy that. And that is an experience with some amount of points.
Yes, that sounds like some progression.
Cooking together builds strong family bonds.
Huh.
It says that right here.
Level up your family.
Exactly. Level up your social interactions with the people you love most with paprika, spiced shrimp, and cheddar grits with tomato and sweet corn.
That sounds like a level 2 recipe.
Mm-hmm. Summer udon noodle salad with cherry tomatoes, corn, and summer sweet pepper.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's going to give you some kind of stat buff. I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Plus 10% to
Mm-hmm. Go on.
some stat.
Yes, some stat
a valuable,
indeed.
a valuable stat.
Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals for free with free shipping by heading over to blueapron.com/bombcast. You'll create incredible home-cooked meals without all the hassle with Blue Apron. So don't wait. That's blueapron.com/bombcast. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. The more I talk, the worse this like dry hacking cough I've got is going to get. It's just been frustrating. Let's get into some video game news.
Okay.
Sorry. There weren't news, and then there were.
There's news now.
There's news now. All right. So, the Tokyo Game Show happened. It didn't seem like there was. Yeah. Yes. The Tugus went down. Didn't seem like there was necessarily a ton of information out of that show. Some games did get announced, but it seems like maybe one of the biggest things I saw coming out of that show was a long Metal Gear Survive gameplay demo. Dan, I forced you against your will to watch that this morning. Tell me about it.
I watched the entirety of that. 16-minute gameplay demo.
How's that? What's that all about?
It is Fortnite.
Okay.
It's Fortnite with the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine.
What is Fortnite?
It is a 4-person crafting and survival action game from Epic Games. To be determined release date. I realized it about halfway through the demo because, I mean, this was 3 or 4 years ago at this point. I played Fortnite for like 2 straight days.
Yeah.
Like, I wrote the cover story for Game Informer. I was out there in North Carolina. I played the hell out of that. Solo, multiplayer, I did everything they had as of 4 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And I realized that's exactly what was going on with Metal Gear Survive. They were getting materials together, these 4 people or whatever. They were working their way towards kind of this structure where they had to place a transmitter. And when they placed the transmitter, this wormhole starts opening up in the sky. Just like in Fortnite, you get to this area and you flip a switch and the storm starts and the sky starts looking all weird. And then waves of zombie-like things start coming in. And you're building fences and stuff. You're using your materials to craft barbed wire fences and walls and things like that. It's just straight up Fortnite.
And you place the coins and it plays the Mario music.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I played Fortnite at a pre-E3 event last year, 2015. And they have an alpha, they've been taking alpha signups for a closed alpha that's all NDA'd up and you can't stream it and you can't talk about it and all this other stuff. They've been letting people into that for years.
People have played it.
Yeah,
many people have played it.
There are people. There's probably someone out there playing it right this second.
Yeah,
none of us, but yeah, they have not sought coverage and all this other stuff. I suspect that game has probably changed a lot.
I would imagine,
or at least has hopefully gotten polished up in some other stuff. But when I saw it, it seemed like it was a phased thing of okay, you're in your collection phase and building phase.
Yep.
When you think you've got your area kind of down, then you flip the switch and then you do the combat part of it. Was that?
That's what this looks like. And you're collecting materials for healing yourself, and I don't know if you're building splints or whatever. But at one point, one of the 4 got shot. And he goes into a pause screen that looked a lot like the Snake Eater thing, where it's no. Take the bullet. It wasn't take the bullet out, apply the septic or whatever the hell it was. But it was it had a percentage of injured, and you had to apply your crafting medicinal stuff or whatever to the thing, so the percentage went down, so he could walk normal again. It showed a
antiseptic. Do not apply septic things to yourself.
What does septic mean?
The opposite of antiseptic. Think about
antiseptic is that like Neosporin?
Sure, probably.
So it's for cleaning a thing.
Yeah.
So septic means dirty?
Think about what a septic system is.
Is that poop tubes?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is directly like sewer, just carrying literal shit around, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which in this game, it sounds like you carry literal shit around to craft into all sorts of stuff, so maybe it works.
Yeah, okay. You're carrying a bunch of shit around to heal people, to build stuff. They showed a couple people branching off to collect stuff while the other 2 went towards the transmitter place or whatever. I do like co-op games where there's a large area and you're kind of free to do whatever. I remember playing Saints Row 2 online, and I just thought it was cool that I'd be fighting a gang in the southeast part of the map while my friend was just doing God knows what all the way across the map or whatever.
And that's the GTA 5 online stuff. Yeah, is sort of that too.
Yeah, I think that stuff's cool. But man. I love the Metal Gear 5 engine, but no part of this game appeals to me at all.
Yeah, Kojima was on stage at some point taking questions, and someone asked, "Hey, there's been rumors that maybe you came up with this concept before you were out of there," and he was like, "Nope,
It seems like they're trying to force some Kojima silliness into it, but it looks forced to me. Like it's kind of like, in Left 4 Dead, you could do the lure thing where what would you throw? You'd throw a thing and everybody would run towards
Pills.
it.
I don't know.
Yeah. But in this, you attach a Fulton to a sheep, and since there is no home base, since you're in some weird alternate dimension, the sheep just kind of floats there, and then all the crystal zombie things or whatever all get drawn to the sheep or whatever, and then you can blow them up with a Molotov or whatever.
It doesn't necessarily sound like it looked bad or anything, but also just...
I mean, the Metal Gear 5 gameplay engine's great. But man, it just doesn't look like it has any real heart to it.
Any kind of stealth?
Yeah, they showed a part where you distract a couple of the zombies by throwing something, and they turn to go walk towards it.
Is it a coin? Do you throw
And,
coins?
no, it was a lure. I think you crafted a lure, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And then it showed both you and your co-op partner sneaking up on
Like a
two
fishing
crystal
lure?
zombies, and just a tackle. You get a
Like
tackle box.
Okay.
No, it's just some fucking thing you throw.
Can of spaghetti.
Yeah.
Just a can of spaghetti with a little servo motor and a spoon. So the spoon slaps the can of spaghetti and makes a noise, and you throw it, and they go, "What's the noise?" And they run over there.
Yeah.
Stealth game stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the trailer showed them sneaking up on a couple zombies and stabbing them in the back, but it's not peering around corners and stuff.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that will actually be vital to the game, and how much of it'll just be like, oh, well, if you want to be stealthy, I guess you could, but why?
Yeah, and then the action once you get to the actual transmitter place is, some guy climbed up a thing and crafted a turret and just stood up there and starts mowing down the waves, and you can craft a chain link fence, and the more zombies push against it, the more it kind of starts falling and stuff. But I mean, it doesn't look like a train wreck of a game.
Right.
I'm just saying, as a Metal Gear fan, this does not appeal to me in any way beyond if this was just named something else and it was the exact same gameplay. There's no real Metal Gear to this.
Yeah, I think the other part of it was the Kojima stuff was him kind of saying when I think about Metal Gear, it's it's maybe stealth and then governmental espionage stuff.
Yeah,
and then and also a bipedal robot.
Yeah. And a huge story and everything. I liked the gameplay Metal Gear 5 a lot, but the thing that keeps me coming back to Metal Gear is the story and the world around it and the characters, and this doesn't seem to have any of that.
Yeah. Well,
I guess they're technically, Ground Zeroes, Military Sans Frontieres soldiers
right.
or whatever.
I mean, they found a way to
they
found a way to put it into the existing storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Sure.
Yeah.
They should. I see why they would make that.
I'll play it. It'd be nice if it was fun, but it just looks like a more soulless Fortnite. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Let's see. A lot of the news this week, there wasn't a ton of stuff. A lot of it will be kind of brief, but a couple of things. In USA Today, Shannon Loftus, the general manager of Microsoft Studios, said that they are targeting native 4K rendering for Scorpio for their first-party games, which, a lot of the Sony stuff is going to be up-resed into 4K and not rendered natively, which, with the power they're talking about for Scorpio versus the power that the PlayStation 4 Pro will have, makes sense. I just thought it was an interesting little tidbit there.
So the PlayStation 4 Pro is upscaling?
Yes, I'm sorry, upscaling.
They are taking a 1080p.
It won't always be 1080p. It could be 1440p or something like that.
Okay. They're taking the resolution the game is spitting out and stretching it to 4K?
Yes. And using
Scorpio,
they've developed new techniques, checkerboard techniques and stuff like that will make that scaler and make that process
look good.
Okay. And the thing that I've been told by people who have seen it up close is that a lot of that stuff is kind of, at some point, your eye might not be able to tell native 4K versus, hey, 1440, scaled up and stuff like that. That in some cases, you're kind of getting 80% of the benefit or a significant percent of the benefit of the higher resolution without having to then have the processing power to natively do 4K. I haven't seen it for myself, so I'm going to kind of withhold judgment on that. But
I wonder if you'd be able to do that with the polygons of the game, but then render the text at 4K. Yeah, I have no idea how any of this works.
You could potentially, that seems like something you could potentially do.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Depending on your assets and all the other stuff.
Scorpio, though, is outputting 4K.
That is what they are saying, is that they are looking for
rendering the game
for first party games.
Okay.
For third party games, they're not going to be able to say you must render natively at 4K because that's just not realistic.
Right.
But they are saying that the first party games will render natively at 4K, which to me seems like an opportunistic moment for them to kind of try to flip the old resolution argument back around and say, oh, you're upscaling, huh? We're natively 4K, I guess. Whereas like Sony was doing exactly that.
Yeah.
When Xbox One games were rendering at 900p and all that other stuff, and fucking resolution arguments forever, right? God.
So in the year 3000, it will be
Are there instances
80,000K
of like I don't understand a lot of like upscaling and processing power type stuff. Like I understand that if something's pushing out 4K natively, maybe that'll be at the expense of frame rate or whatever. That if you
it takes a certain amount of power.
Right. So like let's say on the Xbox 360, you could choose whether you wanted to output at 720 or 1080p. Are there examples of like it runs faster or whatever if you run it at 720p?
No, because you would basically that is primarily done by a scaler, by a piece of hardware. So you're rendering at whatever you're rendering at.
Okay.
If it's native 1080, then whatever. You're probably always rendering at that. And then if the TV can only support 720, it's just squashing that down and spitting it out at 720.
Okay.
Whereas like if it's internally rendering at 900p or whatever, then it's going to scale that down to 720 or up to 1080, depending on what you need to do. It's a piece of hardware that is kind of exists after the graphical power thing to just kind of handle the process of stretching it to fit whatever resolution you need to fit. The PS3 didn't really have one of those. So you would have cases where if you had a TV that only supported 1080i and not 1080p, you would have games that would sometimes fall back to 480p in weird cases because of how it went or how it regarded 720p versus 1080i and all this other stuff. So you would see, on a PS3, you would see your TV popping resolutions and saying, this is 720 because that's what the game renders out at. And whereas the 360 had a scaler. Everyone learned their lesson that time. Now everyone's got their scalers. It's just part of making these current devices. So they can kind of stretch it around however they want. Like the Xbox One S can do 4K, but it is scaling.
Okay, it's scaling the Blu-rays, the 4K Blu-rays, right?
Well, 4K Blu-rays would learn to do. You know what? It's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
This is all the short version of the story. It's a fucking mess. And then there's HDR to consider on top of that, and then there's the latency of the television, and like this whole process is.
Tell me about the lumens.
Well, the lumens. No.
You got that iOS version of Lumens, right?
Yeah.
I
Still
did.
playing that?
It's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Gears of War 4 has gone gold. They are done making it. It's finished. They're
When's
never
that
going to patch
coming
it. It's out in like 3 weeks.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's out pretty soon here.
Shit.
I mean, it's out in October.
Do you know if that has split screen local campaign?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I really hope it does.
It is out October 11th.
Oh, shit. Awesome.
So, yeah, they are pressing discs
Okay.
for that.
I've been thinking about that game recently because I'm having so much fun doing a Halo split screen. It's like, it's been a while since I've played like a Gears campaign.
I am 1,000% ready for a new Gears campaign and for Horde mode. I don't really want anything to do with competitive Gears kind of ever again.
I never
unless they were to make the types of changes to it that would turn off their existing fan base.
That's not what that multiplayer is, though. They made Gears for Gears multiplayer fans.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that beta showed me 100% I don't want anything to do with competitive multiplayer in Gears 4. That's fine.
That's fine.
But they brought back Horde mode. They've got the Horde mode and stuff in there. That stuff looks good. It sounds interesting. So,
did you like that overrun mode in Judgment?
No, I didn't like anything about Judgment.
Okay. I thought Judgment was okay. It's not a terrible game.
I'm not going to say it's absolute trash. I'm going to say that like creatively, I think it is. They picked the worst characters to base a game on.
Yeah.
And like their score stuff where it would kind of stop and go like, hey, do you want to do this stuff was potentially interesting. But, like as someone who like kind of likes the story of Gears for as goofy and dumb as it can be, like that's part of its charm. Basing a game around Baird is the worst thing you could possibly do.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck Baird. The guy's worthless.
Mm-hmm.
He's terrible. So Judgment, like whatever the action. Yeah, I mean you're hiding behind stuff and shooting people. It
felt good.
It still feels like Gears, but it's just 1,000% not what I wanted out of that franchise, especially that soon.
Yeah.
Like wrapping up the trilogy felt like it had like he took the fucking do-rag off. That meant something to me, man. So
it was like Rez. Like you get sweaty thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then to go make Gears of War Gaiden, like fucking who cares? It's the Majora's Mask of Gears of War games. But Gears 4, like, hey, new characters after the fact, old man Marcus Phoenix.
Mhm.
I absolutely want to play that game.
Are we getting any like Dom kids or anything?
I don't think I mean,
We have a Marcus kid, right?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Dom didn't.
I mean, Dom was looking for his wife, and then
he
bad
shot her
things
with an
happened to
elephant
her.
gun.
And yeah, I mean, that was a tragic ending. I don't know that
And then
anything's possible, I guess.
and Dom's gone too, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
3, yeah.
I believe that like one of the fucking pre-order skins for multiplayer is like Zombie Dom or something
course.
like that. So
Did you like Zombie Liu Kang, by the way?
Domby.
sure.
Okay, I was kind of
Yes,
into
Dombey,
it.
Yes.
I,
Yes,
yeah,
Liu Kang with the chains hanging off his wrist, like
And
being hard to
Deception.
unlock in
Yeah,
that mode
yeah.
and stuff. Like
I was way into that.
that was kind of a neat.
That was the right kind of
dumb
Mortal Kombat
thing.
dumbness. Yeah.
South Park has been pushed to Q1, which, you always kind of knew we weren't necessarily done with delays. Just
Mhm.
didn't necessarily think it would be South Park, but here we are.
Yep.
Some layoffs around the industry. Disney lost about 250 people from like the Marvel Avengers Alliance team and some other parts around their gaming division, I guess. So, I mean, they cut a ton of people when the Infinity stuff shut down. So it seems like they're not done, but that's, they're a licensing business. Maybe at some point that's just part of the dark path of becoming just a licensing business. Sony San Diego and Sony London also saw some layoffs. London was working on some VR projects. San Diego was working on Killstrain, which Sony has gone on to say is not dead, despite some or all of that team being cut.
Killstrain seems like a bad name. What is that game?
Killstrain seems like a bad game.
Yeah, I can't even think of what
it's like
that
a
game
top-down
is.
shooter. It seems like it's kind of a class-based, multiplayer-focused thing. They've been kicking it around in various forms of beta forever, and it just never seemed any good. So I mean, obviously, it's a shame that people lost their job, but actual like my thoughts on Killstrain separate from that, I don't think Killstrain is very good. The idea of like, cutting maybe some people that were working on VR projects as soon as their VR projects wrap up, that sort of sucks. But, we could talk about the labor practices of the video game industry for hours. Speaking of which, some of the Avalanche software team, which was the Disney Infinity developers, they have started a new studio for Cast AR, which is an augmented reality company. So they've got a new Cast AR will now have a new studio in Salt Lake City. So some of the senior talent, I guess, from Avalanche went off and did that.
So there's 2 Avalanches, right? There's the Salt Lake one and then a New York.
So those are
Just Cause, or
those are 2 completely different
that's
companies.
what I'm saying.
Those are
Yeah.
There's Avalanche Software and Avalanche Studios.
Right.
I think
Okay.
is what it is.
Yeah.
But then Avalanche Studios is not just in New York. There's also like they're in Sweden, wherever like Just Cause was made before this New York studio opened.
Right. Okay.
I forget where they're based.
Which one made Mad Max? Was that the European one?
Yes, I think that's what they were making that while New York did Just Cause 3.
Okay.
And in the end, no one was happy.
Oh.
Man, I wish Just Cause 3 was a better game.
I was okay with it.
I
liked it. It was missing something.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough of a jump forward,
And I want to say that maybe even like did I read right that like the mod makers that made that crazy multiplayer mod for Just Cause 2 have backed off of Just Cause 3?
Oh, really?
I'll look into that, but I thought I saw something like that. Street Fighter 5 is getting Urien this week.
I like Yuri.
Urien.
Oh, Urien.
Yeah, Urien.
Who is Urien?
Urien is from Street Fighter 3. Big guy, wore a suit, rip it off, kind of a naked dude.
Okay. Wait, I'm thinking of Jury, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I liked.
Yeah.
She's the lady bison with the purple kicks?
Yeah, she's already in the game.
Oh, okay.
So Urien, I believe, is the last character they have promised for the season pass DLC. I think. I think that's all of them.
Was it 6 that they were going for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what'd that be? That'd be Urien, Jury, Guile,
Alex?
Alex, Balrog,
Freddy Krueger.
Kratos,
Mm-hmm.
Yoda,
The car.
the car, the big bear outfit that just does the spin around thing that hits over and over again.
Zombie Liu Kang.
Yeah. That's out Thursday. They've also added 9 new environmental stage knockouts.
Okay.
You kind of would get knocked into things, bowl of noodles fall in the head. They've added some of those, some new colors, a versus CPU option, and daily challenges will finally go in at this point, which will be a way for people to earn fight money.
Wait, They just added a versus CPU option?
This will be like pick who you want to fight and then fight them versus CPU. You could always fight versus the CPU in like survival mode and some other stuff like that. So this is more like, I want to fight this character against this character on this stage and go. Like versus mode, but without another human.
Got it. CPU only versus.
No. Well, maybe you could do CPU versus CPU out of this. I don't know.
Custom CPU matches.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Street Fighter V.
That game was kind of a mess.
It still is in some
Yeah.
weird ways. What
a weird thing. That is their series. That is the big time-tested.
It's the game that seems like it should have been the slam dunk of all slam dunks, and Sony lined it up as an exclusive, and you were like, man, this is fucking crazy. A Street Fighter game has gone exclusive. This is crazy business. Sony's like assisting in its development. This is insane. Man, this game looks awesome. All this stuff they're showing, went and played it. Boy, this looks cool. And then it launched, and just like, except for all the people that are already kind of in that scene who are willing to overlook a lot of stuff, that wider audience that everyone was probably counting on being there when they bought a bunch of TV advertising and all this other stuff was just like, nah, I'm good.
Yep.
I'm out.
Yep. It's been so weird watching, like, you and Jason, just from the big enthusiasm of pre-release to just each week being like, well, maybe when this happens, maybe they'll, and then it just seems like the enthusiasm never really went back up at all.
No. And, that's not to say that, like, the actual fighting in that game is, like, bad or whatever. It's just all of the stuff around it has left such a nasty taste in my mouth. And also, like, I'm not, like, some serious competitive fighting game player. Like, I want the full package.
Yeah.
So when it launched without that full package, it was like, okay, you're already kind of screwing this up. And they never got it back. And I went out and bought a joystick for that game. Like, that's how much I was, like, ready to get back into Street Fighter. I was like, well, I need a PS4 fight stick. Now's the time. Went out. That was like, my honeymoon got cut short because we stayed at a terrible fucking place and bailed on it early and came home. And then that also happened to be the day that we got Street Fighter V codes. And so I ordered a joystick immediately.
I remember you talking about how you were spending time, like, you really wanted to, like, learn it right. And
yeah.
You were spending a lot of time in training mode.
And I was just like, it just, none of that ever, like, I tried to take it seriously while I was playing it, but, other games came out, and I just didn't really see a reason to stick with it. And it's just not exciting to me. And that's a shame. I was hoping that this would be the game, but I think for a lot of the reasons around its release and all this other stuff, like, a lot of it just kind of piled up, and I'm just like, fighting's good, but I just can't get past all of the shit.
Yeah,
that happened around that game.
Yep.
Destiny, Rise of Iron is out.
Mm-hmm.
I came to a realization last night while I was trying to play some Destiny.
What's that?
I have no fucking idea what my character is, what the weapons are, which ones are good, which like subclass I want to equip. Like, I've been away from Destiny so long that the MMO thing kind of happened in a smaller scale of like, oh shit, I have all these quests that I don't even know if I can do alone, or what are these even pointing at? Like, none of this is spelled out in a way that, like, I had a quest that was like, go kill a bunch of Fallen in the Cosmodrome, and I had a moment of like, which ones are the fucking Fallen?
Yeah.
And then I still can't remember the name of the other faction. There's the Fallen,
Vex?
there's the Vex that are the robots. Okay, good.
The Taken are... That's
the Taken are
the
ghost things that are just like,
a
hey,
portal
it's the same
opens
thing,
up,
but different.
The Fallen, the Vex,
And the other thing. There's the Bug Men.
Neocortex?
No.
No?
That information is completely gone from my brain.
I played a lot of Destiny. I can't remember either.
And the
Vector Men?
Nope, it's not the Vector Men.
Fuck. There's only like 3, and you're constantly seeing like go kill X many.
Hive. It's the Hive.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Hive.
They were the bug type things.
Yeah, the bug men.
And the Vex were the robots.
And they're cool.
The Fallen were the big like Goro things, or they had a lot of them had 4 arms. Didn't they?
The Fallen. Yeah, they were aliens.
Yeah.
It was like aliens, bug aliens, robot aliens.
Yeah.
And
then portal and then ghost aliens,
like ghost versions of all 3 of those races, redone.
Yeah.
Slightly.
I had that thing when Tekken King came out because I played a decent amount. Like I beat the story or whatever in the first Destiny, and then I had a bunch of leftover quests. And I went to some place where I was able to just like throw those away basically, so they didn't clutter up my screen, the mission screen. And so I'll probably do that because I'm going to play Rise of Iron because it's got a campaign, right? And it's pretty short.
That was the other thing. I have zero idea what's in this update. Like it came out at 2 a.m., so I haven't touched it at all. Like I loaded it up to make sure I was all patched up because we are gonna maybe do something with it this week. But then I came to this realization, which was like, holy shit, I have zero idea what this expansion is. Well, and like I played enough of it to where I'm like, okay, right, I got this scout rifle from the raid, and I actually hate firing it, but it's still my most effective weapon, so I guess I'm stuck with it for a while.
I'd have to assume you'll get new stuff pretty early since it's a new thing.
That's how expansions work. You would hope that I would immediately get something better, but and now it has books that look like the Dota books.
Oh no.
Of like, hey, here's something, but you're not like buying levels or whatever. But it was like
open
this book,
Gjallarhorns or whatever.
Yeah. No, it was. There's one book associated with this new expansion that I could not open. But then there was an existing book that was like year 2, and they did this for year 1, where it was like complete your legend, complete these 6 tasks, and wouldn't that be cool?
Right.
So it's another one of those, but they've integrated it into the game a little bit better, I guess, with these books.
Did you have to go online to do it before? Because I remember like Giancarlo.
I want to say it was a website.
Oh yeah, Giancarlo tweeted a thing of like, oh, I finished the thing, and I was like, I've never seen that screen in my life, and I put like 70 hours into.
So those are now in the game.
Okay,
and they, I forgot that they had actually like attached to the quest structure in a more relevant and interesting way at some point over the course of I think that was when Taken King came out. But now I have a bunch of those that are like early subclass things of like kill 10 people with Storm Fist, and I'm like, that's the melee attack with this subclass, right? I fucking forget.
You just got to scroll through that thing and
totally,
see what everything is.
I mean, there are wikis I can return to and kind of dig that shit out or something at some point. Or just abandon that stuff because it's not going to... Like, I can't abandon it, though. Like, it's this feeling of like, well, if these quests are in my list, that's for a reason. As someone who wants to wring as much out of Destiny as I can because there's not that much there... dropping these quests is tacit to me saying like, well, why don't I just drop the whole game? So I want.
Are you trying to get 100%, or what are you doing?
Like, well, I don't know. Like
platinum Destiny.
Like, why would I? I mean, I've got most of the trophies. I mean, that's not.
Are you going to platinum Destiny? Is that what you're saying right now?
No.
Are you promising everyone you're going to?
Absolutely not. Not in a million years. Destiny 2 will come out with a separate trophy list and all sorts of stuff. When you do launch this one, though, it does kind of, they've said as much, but it is the full break from the old platforms where it's like, hey, we're going to make a copy of your characters. If you play on PS3. We're going to make a copy of your characters on PS3. They will live on in perpetuity over there, but you playing this version now will not make them progress any further.
If you play the PS3 version, it won't.
You can advance those characters, but it will not go into your PS4 characters
either.
So
if you bought a PS4 later, it's not going to...
Well, it would. It would be a one-time copy.
Okay.
At some point.
But then there's just a cutoff point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But because Rise of Iron is not coming out for old platforms.
Right.
This is them kind of severing ties with that generation.
I think there is a campaign, but that's weird because like
I know there's story stuff because when I went and looked at the book that I couldn't open because it was the book of challenges for the new expansion. It was like, go fight the Arya, do this and fucking kill a guy, and I'm like, all right, there'll be some guys to kill.
Yeah,
but man, I have zero idea what is even going on in the world of Destiny anymore, and like getting back into it, like it was this feeling of like, should I go patrol or what? I need to kill some stuff in the cosmos. I mean, and I just like, I fucking went up completely. I was just like, I have no idea what I'm even supposed to be doing right now.
I mean, when you just land on, like, you can land on any planet in that game and run around and just do bullshit, and usually it'll be like, oh, I guess I did a quest. Like, stuff just happens. Like, I guess I was supposed to kill 50
I mean, I
of
went and did a patrol mission, and then there was a hard boss that came out at the end of it, and that was a weird surprise of like, oh, shit, okay. They did some stuff to Destiny since I played it last, I guess. I don't know. I
kind of like that stuff. I kind of like loading it up. Like, I'm looking forward to doing Rise of Iron because, like you, I haven't played it in probably a year, and I just don't know what's going on in that world anymore. So I just want to go wander and watch bullshit happen.
Yeah,
that sounds fun to me.
Yeah, I am game to play more Destiny.
Yeah,
I did have fun with it with my time with it.
I think Taken King really fixed so much of it. Like, cause I kind of hated it for the first year or whatever, and then Taken King. It's like, oh, I'm actually having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah,
you know?
They cleaned up a lot of interface stuff and just made it more palatable, more accessible, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, hearing that this is kind of like that, this is being described as kind of a stopgap with slightly less content than Taken King had. Like Taken King felt pretty thin in terms of like its story stuff. Like I still like one of the things was they rolled out private matches for competitive multiplayer.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I never want to play competitive multiplayer in this game ever.
And even if you did, how often are you going to be setting up private matches?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm gonna get my posse together. We're gonna get 12 of us together. We're all right, Guardians. Let's get in here. And it's like it's just not gonna happen. It's just not.
You got your tattoo still, right?
Yeah,
Your clan,
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh shit, it's gone.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Last little bit of news before we get into emails here. This is kind of this kind of bummed me out, I guess. I don't know. So Eurogamer has an interview with Shuhei Yoshida. And as part of that, they kind of talked about No Man's Sky a little bit. And, you know, in terms of just like, hey, how that game came out and, you know, what the developers at Hello had been saying the game was versus what it eventually was and kind of some of the mismatched stuff there. Just I pulled a couple of quotes here, one from Yoshida and one from a previous interview from a while ago. This Eurogamer interview says, it wasn't a great PR strategy because he didn't have a PR person helping him, and in the end, he is an indie developer. Okay. In May 2015, Fergal Gara, who was the head of PlayStation's UK branch at the time, in November of that year, he left and went to Amazon. But at the time, he was kind of the head of PlayStation in the UK. He did an interview with MCV, where he said that No Man's Sky will be treated as if it was one from one of our internal studios. We are going to put the full weight of PlayStation behind it. If it all comes together as well as expected, it will be treated like a first-party release. It is not a self-published small indie title on the platform. Fuck those guys. Like, what the fuck? Like, granted, two different people, but two different representatives of the same company. You got one guy saying we're going to treat it like a first-party title, and then you've got the head of first-party going like, yeah, I think they really screwed up. They're an indie dev. I don't know.
That's on them. That's not us.
Not cool.
Yeah.
Super not cool. Super bad look. And, you know, so I think the business ended up being that Sony published the disc version of the game. Hello was self-publishing the digital version on PS4, and then obviously the PC version is all them. So at some point, you can't necessarily expect Sony to do all of the work on that stuff, but with the amount of time, like Sony set up events for, hey, come see No Man's Sky before it is released. That was Sony contacting us for that stuff.
They were putting them on Sony stages and
like this is like them watching them go like, that's them, man. I don't know. Like that's fucking crazy. That's
rough.
That is a throw your partner under the bus, bad look kind of moment of the week. Holy shit.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I just thought that was a little ridiculous thing. Like, neither here nor there. I don't know. Like, obviously, two different people. One guy's not even at the company anymore. And a lot has happened with No Man's Sky since those comments were made. But still, shitty.
Yeah.
A shitty thing to do. Let's take one more break and we'll come back with some emails. How about that?
Sure.
All right. I like the idea of books, but they can be so time-consuming.
Yes. Your eyes
My eyes
have a lot of things to do.
Yeah, my eyes are looking a lot of things throughout the day, but my ears not so much.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Ears just sitting there idle?
Exactly.
You got a lot of ear bandwidth going to waste.
Definitely.
That's what you're saying.
And if you're in that boat, maybe you would be interested in Audible.com.
Oh?
They've got the perfect solution. Get audiobooks and listen to those books you've been meaning to read while you're on the go.
So put those books in your ears?
Put those books in your ears.
Okay.
Whether you're at the gym, during your commute, Audible.com has audiobooks from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers.
That is a wide swath of material.
Yeah, you might learn a little something with their free app that works on iPhones, iPad, Android, Windows Phone, Kindle Fire. Over 500 MP3 players work with this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, unlike a streaming or rental service with Audible, you own the books.
Can I put it on my Diamond Rio?
I mean, maybe. If you own the books, I'm sure you could eventually get to a point where it's on your Diamond Rio.
Okay.
Does your Diamond Rio still work? Probably not.
Maybe.
All right.
It's in a drawer somewhere.
Exactly. So you can access these books anywhere, right from your smartphone, whatever you got. Audible.com also has the Great Listen Guarantee. If you don't like the book, hey, you can exchange it for another title anytime, no questions asked. They're not going to grill into you. Go like, hey, why didn't you like the book?
It's going to quiz you on it.
Yeah. How far did you listen to? We're going to ask you questions about the last chapter, and if you can answer them, we're not going to give you your money back. That's not Audible.
Ah,
They don't ask those questions.
they're pretty chill.
The Great Listen Guarantee demands it.
Okay.
And just for listeners here, there's a free 30-day trial membership. If you head over to audible.com/bombcast, you can start that free trial today. That's 30 days.
Yeah, you could listen to a lot of books in 30 days.
Exactly. Get in there, listen to some books. You're already listening to this, but keep listening to this. Don't turn this off. Look, when this show is over, okay, audible.com/bombcast, integrate it into your life whenever you see fit. Free 30-day trial. All right, Dan, we've come to the final segment of the show.
What's that?
It's time for emails.
Oh, I like emails.
Bombcast@giantbomb.com is the email address where you would send your emails. And when you send them there, you might get them read on this show like these lucky folks. Let's see here. Matt in Gold Coast, Australia says, I ended up pulling a lot of emails.
Okay.
I figured we might.
Let's read 'em.
Yeah. At E3 this year, Microsoft said that they want to move beyond console generations by focusing instead on continuous console iterations, making it more comparable to a PC or an iPhone than a traditional console. They're focusing on making our game library both backwards and forwards compatible, so we don't need to repurchase our favorite games every few years. They've also introduced Xbox Play Anywhere, so some console games and their save files are now also playable on Windows 10 PCs. I think this puts Sony, and to a lesser extent Nintendo, in a tricky spot. If Sony releases the PS5 in a few years without full backwards compatibility, I feel they would have made a potentially fatal mistake. If you're given the choice between two equally powerful consoles in 2019, 2020, but one has already has all your previous games library, wouldn't that be the obvious choice? In that case, I assume people would only consider Sony and Nintendo for the unique or exclusive experiences the consoles offer, with Nintendo arguably being the more unique of the two. What are your thoughts on this potential generationless future?
I mean, that would make a huge impact for me. Like, I love backwards compatibility, and especially as more and more games are received or purchased digitally.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that I can access hundreds of my Xbox 360 games on my Xbox One, I use that frequently.
Yeah, the Xbox 360 stuff I thought was going to be not a big deal. When they announced it, I was like, oh, that's really neat, but also who cares?
Are they going to support this? Is there going to be enough games?
But it's been kind of awesome.
Yes.
To get that stuff. More so in some cases than the stuff that's been coming out on Xbox One sometimes, but you know.
And what a weird surprise. I remember when we saw that live at E3, like none of us saw that coming.
Oh, yeah.
Just like,
yeah.
Are you shitting me?
Well, it's weird because
like,
the architecture is different enough to
Yeah.
where it's like that actually took work, you know? So, but I have to imagine at this point, is the other question here is what moves can the competing console manufacturers make to ensure a strong user base in the years to come? But I honestly, I think we're at a point now, we're at that tipping point with digital purchasing where like there has to be, I think there's an expectation now of forward compatibility.
if you're spending the money on something like I want to have this for longer than
between
a couple
them
years.
releasing these kind of half-step console updates over the next year or so, mixed with just the number of digital purchases. If they were to start from square one, if either of them were to start from square one and say, hey, here's a new closed system and you know we're putting out our first 8 games for it and those are the only games you can play, I don't think people would stand for it.
Even without the half-step thing, people got mad, understandably so, when a new generation of consoles comes out. And it's like, oh, yeah, we took away backwards compatibility. They get mad when it's 7 years in between that. If it's this half-step thing every 2 years and you're cutting stuff off there, like, yeah, people would be pissed off.
Yeah.
I would be.
And you know, they're at a point now where I guess the architecture is similar enough to a PC that, like, some major stuff would have to change just in computing for them to get away from that stuff. It seems like they're at a point where they like the general amount of power they can get for the dollar. Developers seem to be satisfied with the ease of development across those platforms. We'll see where Nintendo, you know, ends up kind of working out along those lines. But, you know, just talking about Sony and Microsoft and the PC, like, I don't see a huge reason to move to something so dramatically different that it breaks that compatibility.
Yeah.
Unless someone actually tries to take some NX-like approach and they're like, we're making a fucking toaster that spits out video games and also it's got a bottle opener on the side. You know, like the NX being handheld and console, like that's kind of a different thing.
That's never been like, you know, Sony and Microsoft have always been like, let's push power. You know, let's have these be, you know, you know, as good a graphics as we can get on these things, you know, with nice bells and whistles with Netflix and all that.
But also not $1 million because no one's going to buy it if we
right.
price it too aggressively.
Whereas Nintendo, ever since like post GameCube, they've been way more open to like, let's just do weird bullshit. 3D screen, motion controls, gamepad, all
they're
that
spending
stuff.
their R&D money on weird stuff as opposed to just like trying to compete in that weird power race.
Keeping up with the Joneses thing that Sony and Microsoft do.
Which I think is smart. I don't know that they would be able to compete on that stuff if they were to suddenly go down that road. I just don't think it would play to their strength.
No, not at all.
So yeah, I think that, you know, like, yeah, if we're talking like a full generation break, you know, if there even is a PlayStation 5, you know, like I guess you could just at some point go like, fuck it, we're going to start numbering them that way, but really it's the same architecture beefed up.
It seems weird to go back to that old naming convention if you're
works for the iPhone.
Breaking. Yeah, well, the iPhone even does like the S stuff or whatever, and then like iPad's even weirder because iPad will sometimes like this one's called the new iPad. Or
but also think about it in terms of like, well, what if we have the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4 Pro, then the PlayStation 5, then the PlayStation 5 Pro.
The Pro is the S, basically the every other year thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would not be able to get away with this every other year.
Right. But the every other incarnation.
Yeah. Like you could see them going along those lines.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I think that, you know, I think that generationless future, I think that makes a lot of sense now with kind of where we're at in terms of the architecture and consumer expectations for power and you know, the way phones have changed things. I think it's a really risky. And I talked about it a lot last week. I think that both of them are in some really risky spaces where you've got, you know, like if you start trying to have these conversations about power, then I guess the more you get people thinking about like spending money to get more power out of their games, like you're just kind of, again, building a case for the PC.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And, you know, some people will say like, oh, well, the PC is so much more expensive. It's like, yes, but it's not like a world of difference. And generally speaking, PC games can be had for lower prices in a lot of cases. And you know, like that's, you know, at some point they are building the case for the PC. So the people who are truly power conscious, who really, really want to go there, you're just giving them more reason to make that jump. And I think that's risky, but I don't know what they do otherwise. So I feel like they're in a tough spot one way or the other. But I just, the PS4 Pro just doesn't seem like a great, I don't know that Scorpio sounds amazing either. And like going too far, like Scorpio at some point go like how expensive does that thing end up being? You know, at some point do you go like, well, if I take what I bought my Xbox One for and then this Scorpio price, if I had just bought a PC at the start of this generation, it would still be better than the Scorpio.
Yep, as long as you do, you know, upgrade it a little bit along the way.
Yeah, so
I realize one thing I'm going to miss is the old way of console upgrades, you know, every 5-7 years or whatever new console cycle comes out.
Yeah.
Is that with a new console came all of this like, oh man, did you hear the Xbox 360 is going to like stream Netflix and it's got this achievement thing and online's going to have this, and like it seems like it comes with a whole suite of totally new things. Like it felt like an event when you got a new one.
Right.
Where, you know, I'm going to get my new iPhone at some point, and it's going to be like, all right, it's my iPhone. It's got a couple new, I can 3D touch. I can do this thing. Oh, the home button's different. You know, I kind of, I'll miss the big like, this is a totally new device.
I think that you'll end up with like that on a different cycle, right? Because that'll just become the firmware updates. If you think about like iOS 10, and Apple usually times those releases to the release of the new hardware anyway. But you know, you could just see them going like, you know, you could see them getting behind like new firmware updates in a bigger way as like, hey, we're rolling out crazy new features.
Yeah.
One of these days, Sony's going to let you change your name.
You think?
It has to happen.
They're going to figure that out?
They'll have to figure it out.
That'd be great if they did.
They will run out of other things to do someday and go like, all right, let's tackle this. It's hard, but let's figure it out.
That would be very nice.
It'll have to happen sooner rather than later. Right? It's just...
You would think.
You would think. Blizzard will now let you pay them $10 to change your name. Everyone's in on the act. It's just think of it as additional revenue. Sony.
I have paid Microsoft to change my gamer tag before.
I'm getting ready to.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, why not? But the lack of the inability to have parity between the two is what keeps me from doing it. Whatever. That's dumb. It's all dumb. Deidre in Toronto says, on last week's episode, you mentioned eventually McDonald's workers will be replaced by kiosks. I'm here to say that in Toronto, at least, that future is now. And then sent a picture. Last time Deidre needed a McGriddle, look, you never had to talk to anyone. The tray just appears on a pickup counter.
What?
I love the show and look forward to a robot future. I knew they were testing those. I thought they were testing these mostly in I thought it was like Hong Kong or something. The idea that like Toronto, like much closer to home.
I mean, I do like that idea in some way because I go to a lot of fast food places and I have a lot of specific orders. I have things less so now than I used to. You know, I used to take off this, take off this, take off this. But whenever you give any kind of custom order whatsoever, for instance, I had Taco Bell yesterday for dinner.
Yes.
And I walked in and I wanted to get the cheesy gordita crunch with the Dorito Loco ranch shell. Which you have to ask for that. And that is a menu item. That's not like a weird secret menu thing. That is the thing they have buttons for.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I asked for it, and she just stared at me. And I was like, yeah, just normal cheese gordita crunch, but just make the shell the ranch thing. And she had no idea what to do, call the manager over. This happens all the time. So if I can go up to a screen, computers are very, very smart, and I can say, do this, do this, do this, put this there, take that off. Boom. Perfect.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. I think that how this eventually shakes out, and you see some of this stuff with like online ordering for various restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like restaurants, you know, like I think you can order online from Subway.
Yeah.
From your phone.
You can do that with Chipotle.
Yeah, and then go pick it up. I think how this eventually shakes out, and I had this idea when I was a kid of just like, man, because I wanted ketchup only on my burgers, and a lot of the time they would fuck it up, and I would be very sad. Especially because onions are the worst, especially at McDonald's. They're just, oh, god damn it.
I don't
Anyway,
know if I've ever had McDonald's onions.
So I thought, like, man, I should just be able to have like a card that is, here's what I want on it, and I go to the store and it prints out because it's before phones, you know, like 80s technology, going like, okay, like print me out a punch card, print me out something that says, here's what my order is. I just walk in, hand it to them. They know. They scan the card. They do something with the card. They read the card. I don't know. And then it just happens. And then, you know, maybe mistakes will still happen, but at some point, like the process of ordering and making someone understand what you're trying to order is like, that is eliminated from the loop.
Yeah.
And now technology is at a point where, yeah, I mean, they could put a kiosk with an NFC on it, and you could just walk up and go like, I've got the app, and boop, and then do your thing.
Have you
Could
guys?
I-
Not with an iPhone, because NFC is fucking locked to Apple Pay.
Could I have like a cheesy gordita crunch amiibo and I just place it on an NFC thing?
That's kind of how this should work
Oh, man.
in a weird way.
Have you guys tried Itza?
No.
It is I believe it's San Francisco only. I think there's like
Sounds about right.
3 locations. There's an app. So I leave the office. As I'm walking to Itza, I compose my order, and it's like a bowl. And you pick exactly what you want in there. And then by the time I get there, it's just you walk into the brick and mortar place, and it's just a bank of
So it's like an automat?
cubbies
Okay.
that it has my name printed on it on the glass. It's like some that technology where they print
yeah.
glass.
Yeah.
And it just says Drew, and I go up and I touch it, and I take the bowl and I leave because robots have made my
Awesome.
bowl before while I was walking there.
Do you know for sure that the food is being made by robots?
I've not seen them.
Okay.
But that is the whole gist of that company.
Oh, okay.
There's
So
like a human walking around. There are also kiosks in the store, and he's making sure that I guess you don't, or you need help, or you don't steal anything, or whatever.
Yeah, you're breaking things.
But that's the whole point. Like
Yeah.
robots are making your food.
That's so cool.
I think that stuff's awesome, and like I think it's a future we have to get to. At the same time, the number of people it will leave jobless if you made that transition like immediately is like fucking scary.
But if you're a company and you just see the bottom line and see like, well, if we make this sweeping change right now and we'll save 6 digits, 7 digits, they're going to do it. So it's going to happen, no matter how much of a bummer that is. I mean, hell, I've worked at McDonald's.
No,
you know,
yeah,
like,
I absolutely think it'll happen at some point. It's one of those things that like, you know, like I never thought of as a kid. It's like, well, we have to take people out of the loop. It needs to be like war games. Get them out of the fucking chairs. No more key turning. Just let me get these cheeseburgers with no fucking lettuce on them. And now I realize like, oh man, like this problem is a zillion times more complicated than that. Because what do you do with all those? They can't all work in robot repair at McDonald's.
It's business, and businesses will do whatever makes the most sense for their bottom line. Like,
yeah. So I think the thing is actually like until and maybe this has changed or something like that. But there was when this first started coming up, it was like the idea was like actually the scarier thing is that it's cheaper to pay people minimum wage than it is to install robots in all these locations and then do upkeep on the equipment.
Right.
Which was even more depressing in a lot of ways too. So it's obviously tons of ins and outs around that I just keep thinking about. Like we seem like on the cusp of all this like disruptive technology, like driverless cars. Here's the next question here. John says, the U.S. government has now endorsed self-driving cars. Does the Giant Bomb staff endorse them as well? How psyched are you to get into a car that is being driven by computers?
Very.
Kind of psyched, because I don't like driving, and I like being able to like play 3DS or read or something when I'm going to places.
Yeah.
So yes.
I'm kind of with that as well. But again, taxis and now Uber drivers and all this other stuff. Like, like the people that have kind of fell into being taxi likes out there are now going to suddenly also, like, this is, and this is what Ford and a lot of other companies, as they start to lean into the self-driving car stuff, and what it really means is they're looking at a future where maybe people don't want to own a car, because that's happening now. Like the people kind of aging into car ownership and all that other stuff. A lot of them are living in city centers where they're being served by public transportation or Uber or all this other stuff. So they're starting to think about it like, okay, well, we need an app that you walk outside, you say, I'm here, and then one driverless car from our fleet shows up, and you go where you're going and get out, and you never own a car. And Ford, a company that is for 100 years more, has been based on the idea of you buying fucking cars from Ford, has to like figure out like, okay, we are suddenly now a technology company. Maybe we always have been, but now it's like super apparent that like, we need to figure out how we go from like selling you these goods to now like we create a service around our hardware and you do this and who do we partner with and all this other stuff.
This sounds like the music industry, like, when downloading and iTunes and everything. It's like, oh, we have to change how we look at everything.
Like immediately.
Yeah.
Because if we don't,
in the
then
dust.
like, yeah, what happens when some other company does and then we suddenly, there's no market for our product anymore. Like, there was an NPR interview with someone from Ford and other companies that were kind of in this. And I hadn't thought about it at the time until I heard that. And Ford was like, oh, yeah, we're going to see self-driving cars on the road in like 3 to 5 years. And we're accounting for that. And we're building and we're looking to build a service around this stuff. And we're making partnerships where appropriate to build for this eventual future where no one has to own a car. And I'm like, okay, that's like, you talk about fucking having to upend your business and figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. But also, it was this thing of like, man, I don't want to own a car.
Yeah, it's great not owning a car.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I have to because I live up north. So the public transportation options are slim and terrible. So it would be like doubling my commute time and all that. It'd be nice because I could sit on a bus or on a ferry and do other stuff. But that's 2 hours instead of the one, slightly over one that it usually takes me now.
In both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I don't want to give up that much of my life. I'd rather like spend the money on this fucking car and spend more money putting miles into it and reducing its value and this thing I theoretically own. And that's just kind of how it has to be. And that's how it always has been. And yeah, but like if I could just fucking, even if I had to own the self-driving car, if I could reclaim that time and trust in the tech enough to where I'm on my laptop fucking around and, honestly, I'm running a radio show out of a self-driving car. That sounds fantastic.
That's your future.
That's my future.
Being driven around in a little pod doing a radio show.
Taking calls, just driving around in this thing as it tries to find a place to put me.
What if you live there too?
Yeah, what if
It's
I
everything.
just live in this car?
Your office, you're moving office.
My
Yeah.
mobile office. That sounds super exciting. And I've been thinking about so that NPR thing and hearing Ford talk about it that way. And then all these other companies, which most of them are technology companies first. So you're just like, oh, well, of course they're thinking this way. But it was Ford that I was like, oh, shit. What will this mean for the future of the Mustang? It was that then I went to, well, and I've been thinking about this for a while. I think I talked about it at one point. But like, what is a driving game in a world where kids are not brought up in a world where you ever drive a car?
You mean you have to use your hands?
Yeah. Right. It's like a baby's toy.
Right.
Oh, weird.
It's like that whole idea.
I'm sure like the sport of racing will still be around once there are self-driving cars.
Yes, but
the
like,
concept of driving a car.
That's the sport of racing, which is a very different thing from street racing. And there's an aspirational aspect of just like I bought my car based on playing Forza and Gran Turismo. Like it helped inform my car buying decisions in a weird way.
All right, a Need for Speed game where you play as an AI for a self-driving car, and there's FMVs where you have like beef with other AI.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Robo Race is coming.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, robotically driven cars are going to happen. So, maybe it's a game where you just like program the AI and hope that you out-program the other drivers.
It's a coding thing.
And Robot Razor Callahan is fucking the most savage AI on the block, and you got to hack his ice and hack the car.
I think cars in that case will maybe become like vinyl.
Right. Yeah, I mean, 3 to 5 years until the first self-driving cars are fully on the road, is one thing. Actually removing human-driven cars is the thing that will obviously take a long time.
Right.
I think you'll just have generations of people that won't accept it, and they'll just be like, nope, fuck you. I own a car. This is America.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll take some time for that to be kind of bred out of the system, I think. Or for those ideas to age out.
Yeah. That would take decades, I would think.
Yeah. But like I look at it and go like, man, I've had some great times driving cars over the years, but like I'm not married to it.
Yeah.
If
If
it went away tomorrow and the tech was good enough, I guess that's the key, right? If it's like this dangerous, crazy thing, then obviously
the second there's one fatality though, that's going to be blown up. Like
it happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But also it was one.
Yeah.
And then you look at that compared to human-driven
right.
cars, and you're like, oh, actually, I
Drunk
guess
driving
maybe,
and all the
maybe it's not
factors.
so bad. Yeah, I'm drunk. Imagine just being able to get fucking wasted.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And then just get in your little coffin and have it drive you wherever it's going to go and hope for the best.
Don't call it
Okay. Let's
that's a bad the
underselling.
Ford coffin.
All right, prototype name coffin is off. We are scratching that off the
Just
list.
a working title.
Yeah.
Hey, I was thinking about Uber this weekend. Is things like Uber and Lyft, I was under the impression they were very mainstream. Right? Like people of all types use Uber and Lyft, and it's not like a tech elite thing, right?
No, I think a lot of people use it, but also it's more expensive than a taxi.
Okay, because I was working on an indie wrestling show on Friday, and I told the guys in the locker room, like, okay, I got to grab an Uber. And a couple of the wrestlers were like, oh, Uber man here, living the gimmick, fancy tech douchebag. And like, what? I thought everyone used Uber.
No,
but they all drive, beat up cars, on the loop.
Yeah, they're on the loop.
So, yeah.
You can't take an Uber on the loop. Right. You can't take an Uber outside of San Francisco too frequently.
I guess I was just shocked when they were like surprised when I said Uber. And they're like, ooh.
Yeah.
That's a normal thing, right?
That's that still happens. Yeah. Uber is not fully penetrated to the point where it is.
My fucking dad uses Uber, and he doesn't know how phones work.
They have Uber out there?
Yeah.
See, I think they have Uber in Somalia.
Yeah. I mean, they're a nightmarish company from the sounds of things. By all accounts, they're terrible. And they're looking to get those humans out of those cars as soon as they possibly can because of how much money they'll save when they shift to self-driving cars. That's... Of course they are. But so, it's kind of a shitty thing in a way. But at the same time, it's also very convenient in a way that I think taxis are not. And
no, I hate using taxis.
It's a hard... It's a... Ooh, yeah. That's what tech is doing in the darkest sense of the word, is it's like bringing up all this moral shit that you're just like, oh man, you're like actively fucking over people to disrupt the economy, bro. And you're going to fucking burn down a forest for your wedding, Facebook man. And like all this other fucking weird shit. So we're all, society is falling apart.
When did the future happen?
And it's never been better.
Yeah, the future happened at some point, like in like the 90s, and I feel like the early 2000s, the big like technological things are like, oh, I can email now, or oh, look at this Facebook.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, cars aren't going to be a thing, and also music, like you don't buy CDs anymore. And
at some point, Facebook will be the last company left, and they'll fight Google. Like at some point, we'll be fighting corporate proxy wars, just like Syndicate predicted. And it's... Who knows?
It seems like the last 5 years have been nuts. I don't know if it's just like living in San Francisco the last couple of years, but like everything's just fucking changed.
You kind of have more of a front row seat to like the most disruptive aspects of it. And I mean that in the worst way of like,
the scooters, right?
Yeah, of like guy on scooter who will show up and park your car.
Yeah.
I use that service.
Yeah, because you use an app to park your car. Of just like, man, what?
Yeah.
Like that's like kind of awesome and it does fill a need, but like what are we? What are we?
Yeah. I heard about that and I was like, no, wait. Why not?
And then there are multiple apps.
I guess I need that. I guess that works.
There are multiple apps. And obviously services like this have existed, but now it's like fancy and new because I can use an app to get someone to show up and get my laundry.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't because I live in the suburbs. Actually, sometimes I load up the Uber app in my town and sometimes there are cars there and now I'm scared. Because it used to be they would just be like, no, we're Uber. We're in San Francisco. You're not. Fuck you. So that's the thing. I'm used to like having like daytime access to this stuff if I want it, which I never do. generally speaking, like Uber sometimes. But then when I get out of town, all that stuff goes away. It's like there are now like 8 restaurants that will deliver to me from an app, from like the Eat24 app
In
or whatever.
Petaluma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're only like 8, and some of them are in the app, but they're actually pickup only. And you're like, what the fuck?
So you're like in Minority Report when he drives the Lexus out to the country and there's no more like of the self-driving cars.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I am literally driving a Lexus out to the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and there are no self-driving cars out there.
Yeah.
Not a lot of Bluetooth headsets. It's like kind of, yeah. All right. Michael in Corpus Christi, Texas writes and says, after King of Fighters 14 scrapped the 2D sprites and picked up 3D models, as well as the fact that Marvel was sold to Disney, leading to there probably never being another Marvel versus Capcom game. I don't know that I would go that far, Michael. Do you think it is possible that Capcom and SNK can be planning to make Capcom versus SNK 3?
Does that really have mass market appeal?
Yes, it's the best thing they could be doing. Holy shit, they should totally make Capcom versus SNK 3.
Mass market.
No,
Not Gerstmann market.
I mean, Marvel is a bigger name than SNK.
Right.
I actually think that, with Disney entering into this world of them being strictly a licensing company, like everything is back on the table, and it's up to Capcom if they want to make an MVC3.
Isn't that why they bought Marvel? To license everything all the time?
Yeah. So I think
MVC4, right?
So I don't think it's impossible. I think, it would be expensive, and maybe Capcom doesn't want to do it. Or, sorry, 4. You're right. 4.
Yeah.
But I think all those licenses are attainable. Those are all just conversations and meeting in the middle on money. It's just a matter of like, can you actually do the business in a way that makes that profitable for everyone involved to the point where it's worth them having the conversations. And I think for Marvel, like absolutely, it's someday they will have to return to that and make another one. I think it just makes too much sense. That would probably be a profitable project, I think.
Yeah.
Capcom versus SNK, man, those are both really great games. Or 3, I guess, those are great games. I would love to see them. I don't know that doing it polygonally would actually scratch the itch I want scratched, though. So I'm not really sure how I would prefer to see it go, but I would love to see a CVS3.
This is still my biggest gaming mystery. I think I brought it up at some point before, but no one has answered it for me. At some point in like 2004 or 2005, I got an Xbox magazine that had a demo disc, and on it was Capcom vs. SNK 2 EO, the one where you could just use the stick to do, the special moves. The whole fucking game was on there. It was advertised as a demo. It didn't say the full game was on there, but I played that all the time. Every character was available, arcade mode. I did not see that anything was missing. I don't know if there was an online
Could you
there.
play it online? That's my question.
I know I never did because I never had Xbox Live back then.
Because I'm pretty sure that game, it was not, I think online might have been exclusive to Xbox Live.
But also, wouldn't that still be an insane thing to give every other part of that game for free in a magazine demo disc?
Yes.
What was the magazine? Do we have
I think
the demo disc?
I think it was official Xbox magazine. I'm not positive. But
What is your number?
I don't know. I don't think I have that disc anymore. I brought in all of mine.
So I actually had the chat window open over here, and it says you could not unlock characters or play online, but yes, they totally did that.
Okay.
So yes,
that was the best demo disc I've ever had. It had a full game on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. That Pizza Hut PlayStation one's pretty good too. They had Metal Gear on it.
Oh, that's right.
That demo disc is responsible for Metal Gear Scanlan.
It is.
I brought in that exact Pizza Hut demo disc that I got in Kansas in like 1998, and that was responsible for Metal Gear Scanlan.
Thanks, Pizza Hut.
Thanks, Reggie, formerly of Pizza Hut.
Yes.
Yeah. Did he come up with the Bigfoot?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Lucas in Newport, Tennessee says, "What's the best pro wrestling video game ever made?"
No Mercy.
He says, "No Mercy is the obvious answer for a lot of folks, but I've always been fond of Tecmo World Wrestling for the NES." Tecmo World Wrestling is really good. It has commentary. Like the lower part of the screen is like 2 commentators, and it fills in dialogue and stuff. It's kind of cool.
For me, I got to have the license. I got to have the actual wrestlers,
Sure, yeah.
That's such a big part for me. So
I don't actually have an answer to this question because I just don't think any of them are particularly great.
I think Here Comes the Pain on PlayStation 2 was very, very good.
That first SmackDown was like kind of a revelation for me at the time.
It was weird.
It was like a faster playing game.
Yeah.
It was just like,
It felt arcadey.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what those games should be. I think No Mercy is lame.
Did you ever play Royal Rumble on the Dreamcast?
Yeah.
Like 6 or 9 guys in the ring or whatever.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about arcadey, that was just
too
frantic.
That is literally an arcade game.
Yeah,
There's an arcade version of that. So, yeah.
But yeah, I think No Mercy is definitely the one. Like all those 64 Aki ones. I know you're not big on them, but those are definitely my favorites. I actually thought WWE 13 was really good. Their recent stuff has been terrible. But yeah, as far as the last 10 years, I'd say WWE 13 is probably my favorite one.
It's crazy to me that you would say that you like 13, but the recent ones are terrible, because I think overwhelmingly those games are roughly identical. And they make their changes, and they do the chain wrestling this, and they do that, and they take out features, they do this other stuff, but
13 felt snappier. The roster was really good. That Attitude Era mode was one of the first times they had done something that extensive with that type of stuff. Because before that, on SmackDown vs. Raw and WWE 12 and stuff, they just had the hey, we wrote some bullshit story, play through it.
I mean, yes, they've gotten better with the story and the video packages and all this other stuff, but to the core gameplay, I think has just been rotten ever since. And I think that Ukes has not been able to make a great wrestling game since the first couple of SmackDowns.
I think 13 was the closest they got. I think they've gotten worse. The controls have always felt muddier.
Yeah.
I do not like anything past 13. 14 was kind of like 13, just with the WrestleMania thing instead, which I didn't think was as good as the Attitude Era thing. But then 15 and 16 were atrocious, I thought. And I don't know. I played a decent amount of 17. Not a decent amount. I went to one event, I guess. But it doesn't feel that much better. I might play some more soon. I want those games to be good. I want them to be good, but they are not.
I just don't. I think that they have to toss all of it and start over with a new developer and new ideas for gameplay and what they're trying to achieve. Because I think just the thing that they're chasing after with their gameplay just feels so off the mark to me in terms of what I would want from a wrestling game.
Right.
That I just don't.
It's the simulation thing that's so weird. You're trying to make this NBA 2K, but with wrestling. It's don't you want no wrestling fan is going to tell you it's like a sport. You know, no one thinks that.
That's not. It's I don't want to. Yeah.
But then again, when they try to do make your own promo or whatever, and I've seen clips the new trailer. There's you're doing good in your promo. I don't know how the mechanics work, but I don't want to do some fucking parappa thing to do a promo. Who knows what they're actually.
I do.
Actually, now that can I be that frog guy?
Think about what you're saying.
Can I be the flea market frog?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're bad games.
Gerald Redson says, I was bummed out about missing seeing you at the LA Podfest last year, and I assume you won't be making it this year since the event is later this week. It sounds like you got swept up in the... are you folks considering any other events this year, such as the Now Hear This Festival in Anaheim? I mean, we are not currently... I wouldn't be opposed to doing another podcast festival thing. I know that LA Podfest thing is happening. I don't think the McElroys are going either. I don't know that.
I get some emails from it, but I don't really recognize any of the podcasts for the most part.
Yeah, I think we got added to some mailing list. Hey, you should come to the Podfest. I'm
yeah.
What? No. So I don't know. That thing seemed very LA centric in terms of the shows that were there and the people that were showing up to see it. But I had a good time doing it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to doing other podcast festival stuff. But we aren't currently planning everything. If you're running a podcast festival and interested in having us at a podcast festival, get a hold of us. Maybe we do something like that. Let's see here. Looking at these last couple of emails.
Someone playing bass in the room next door?
It sure sounds like it.
I don't think that's coming through on the mics, but
yeah,
it's what it sounds like.
Noise happening.
I can definitely hear it. Let's see. Bart writes in and says, I'm curious as to when you guys think Nintendo actually will talk about the NX. It's coming out in apparently 6 months by their call. Shouldn't they start talking about it sometime soon? When do you guys predict they'll actually tell us what it is?
Yeah, this is actually my question. Yeah. After I realized TGS was happening.
Yeah.
I thought,
That's what everyone was saying. It was maybe a week removed from TGS. They'll do a direct or something. Or Yeah, I would really like to see that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if they're still sticking to a March release date, they don't have a ton of time. But also, they could kind of just make their own event.
And that's kind of exciting in a way that, we're so used to hearing about consoles for 2.5 years or whatever, and multiple E3s before it comes out. It's kind of a cool idea of okay, here's everything about the console you're learning for the first time. Also, it's coming out in 5 months,
What if it was coming out in 2 weeks? What if they announced it and said pre-orders open right now and it's out in a
I
week?
know
What if,
everyone
what if
loves that idea.
But what if they went full Apple on it? And that doesn't mean they're not talking to retailers about that sort of stuff and getting stuff set up. That was the thing that people didn't like about the Saturn stuff.
Oh, is that
the
retailers were in the dark?
Like, fucking what? Because it was like a KB Toys exclusive.
Right.
So if you were any other retailer than that, you were like, well, fuck you guys.
Yeah, because like when Apple does an announcement, they already have like the main case makers and everything already have like the form factor and all that stuff figured out.
Yeah.
So they're obviously reaching out to the people that need to know that stuff.
I think those people are actually like some of them are maybe they're getting outreach from Apple, but I suspect some of them and the cases that leak out and stuff like that, some of them are just like going off of Chinese parts leaks and going like, all right,
or hearing about the lightning cable
like,
thing
hey,
or something.
we paid for a mold, someone slipped one out, and now we're making cases based on this thing. We hope we're right, otherwise, yeah, I don't know exactly how that business works, but you have to, I wonder if that's the plan, because they're kind of running out of time. They're out of like big events between now and then.
So you're not saying do a direct now?
There's Christmas and there's Black Friday,
right? Yeah,
for pre-order time.
But also they would want to get out of the way of that, because people are buying stuff that for Christmas presents at that point. Like, hey, we pre-ordered you an NX for Christmas.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is a little weird. So, though not impossible. I mean, you're right. There is probably some value in that, but I don't know that.
When's Golden Week?
I think it already happened.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't have a good answer for this. Like, it seems like something they would have said by now, and by the way most consoles are announced and talked about, this seems like it should have happened. But, but
they could have been just waiting for dust to settle on the Neo, and they're not. All indications say that they are not going to be directly comparable systems, but like you could look at how like all the phrasing came from Sony and Microsoft with the Scorpio, and then all right, now that we have seen what everybody else is saying about their thing, now we can formulate best what we're going to say.
NX is going to be 8K.
There you go.
Yep. But all on that screen.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's 720 on the screen.
Yeah.
From what's been going around lately. Yeah, I don't well, yeah, we're at this stage where there's kind of been an unprecedented number of leaks about the state of the system and what it does and the nature of the system in a way that like kind of maps back to the Apple process. So I wonder if they'll just have some big live direct or some big like, hey, we've got something to say, and it happens to be like the first week of March.
I would be okay with that. I wouldn't hate that.
I don't actually care. I mean, like, however they announce it is fine at this point.
Yeah.
I think as long as they, get the point across about what it is and open up pre-orders and stuff like that. Like, I think there are multiple ways to go about it, and I don't know that any of them are necessarily wrong.
But I want to know now, Jeff.
Yeah, I would rather hear their. I want to hear them. I want to hear their pitch. I want to hear their actual pitch for this thing and go like, hey, here's what it is. And you have to wonder, like, maybe the software is just coming together super late in a way that like they can't show it right
Like they've got a Mario they want to show or something.
Yeah,
and it's
and
not
they're just
quite
like, it's
there.
not, it's just, we can't get it
Third-party
working
stuff.
right. I mean,
knows?
yeah, like that's the thing is you start to think like, well, wait, third parties should be working away on these games if they're shipping in March. Like they should have been working on them for a while. And I think some studios have gone through disclosure and have kits, but I don't know that for sure. It just seems like something that would have had to have happened by now.
Right.
Couldn't that thing totally launch with the new Mario game? Like it's been like
It should,
years since the
should.
last
I mean,
real deal
should.
Mario
I mean,
single player game.
Why wouldn't it? Yeah.
Galaxy 2?
Super Mario Run.
Galaxy 2 was last, single player one, and then 3D World I think was by the same team.
Oh, yeah.
And you could play that single player. Like that game, I count that as a real deal Mario game. That was an awesome game. But yeah, I want a single player Mario game.
I mean, I think that whatever they would do would potentially have a multiplayer aspect to it, just to sell the idea of when you take it with you, you can do this with other people in your vicinity.
Oh, okay.
I think the launch games would be games you would want to take advantage of all the functionality.
I guess they always did weird little things with Galaxy, like point at the screen and shoot. And
so I could see them come up with something. Yeah, it's I mean, talking to some developers about some stuff and hearing bits and pieces, and at this point, I think I haven't heard too much lately. Like most of what I've heard is now old information, but it is old information that has since been more or less confirmed.
Okay.
So I just haven't checked in with anybody lately to see like, hey, so what's up?
It's exciting. Like the leaked stuff or the rumors and everything. Like it sounds like something I really want.
Yeah, I think it's the right idea to get all of Nintendo's games onto one platform instead of two, and I like that.
And as someone that commutes and will probably be commuting at some point when I'm in New York and everything, like the idea of taking my major real console Nintendo games on the bus with me every day is awesome.
And for me, the idea of never having to play a game on a handheld ever again is pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it'll end up being like, oh, some of these games use the small screen anyway, or like who knows?
And this is the company that released a Mario Maker game where you can't upload your levels.
They haven't released it yet.
They're going to. Yes.
Box Maker is more functional.
That's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. How about I take one more question here? Well, why don't we end how we started? Christoph wrote in with his own stories about San Francisco.
Okay.
Love the Truman Show.
Christoph's from
Nice job.
Germany. Yeah, nice work. On the last episode of the podcast, Brad was wondering what kind of picture we were painting of San Francisco and said it is not exactly hell on earth. Well, me and my parents, all living in Germany, visited the USA recently, and about 2 weeks ago, we were in San Francisco.
Can confirm Germans love San Francisco.
Yeah. There's a lot of
German flying around on the sidewalks.
I was, thanks to you, prepared for the sights and smells, while my parents, about 70 years old, only know of San Francisco from movies and old rock songs. They didn't believe me when I said it's going to smell like feces, and that's not all from animals on 4 legs or with wings. Now they do. In fact, they were so shocked by all the homeless people and drug addicts that even a week later in Los Angeles, my father had moments of callbacks to San Francisco that made him shudder and feel uncomfortable for a good dozen minutes several times. I should mention that we had a hotel on Ellis Street.
Is that Tenderloin?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've stayed there, yeah.
Those are mistakes you might make if you were coming in from another country and looking for...
Look, all these hotels, nicely
They're all
together,
right
here near Union Square.
Yeah.
Trolley cars, great.
It looks like they have an hourly rate.
Oh.
That seems to be a bad street. Once I walked back to my hotel, saw Ellis Street, and thought, well, I'll just follow this for some miles, but it got so bad, even physical, that I changed to a parallel street for most of my way back. Also, the City Hall area was a bizarre sight. Like in Fallout, there were old palaces standing around, but everyone lives in shacks on the streets. Yeah, that maybe sounds a little harsh, because I think even the Tenderloin is not, I mean, there's some stuff going on. Like there are people on the streets, there's stuff happening out there, but
It's a level of mental illness in numbers that you don't see in other American cities.
Yeah, I'd say a concentration.
That's the thing. Like, you will find mentally ill people and homeless people in any major metropolitan area, but the sheer volume every day, it's just everywhere. I don't even like walking around New York for that month. There were homeless people there, but it wasn't the numbers and it wasn't the aggression and the severity that you see here.
Yeah. This was such a shock to my parents because in Germany, every legal citizen will be provided with their own apartment, granted Spartan and mostly in backwater towns. Beggars and homeless here either chose to be homeless in a big city instead of covered in the middle of nowhere or are working for Eastern European mafias, the latter being a recent development. Yeah, A very angry and distressed taxi driver in San Francisco said it's like this everywhere in the U.S., but San Francisco is small, so we can't shove them in outer districts that tourists don't see. Maybe that's true. We saw 10 times less 2 years ago in NYC and Montreal. San Francisco is like 7 square miles. It actually is a pretty small city, all told. So
7 by 7,
kinda
right?
Packed in pretty tight.
Yeah.
And where people vacation and work is all where most of that stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go out to where people actually live, and there's not a lot.
Like the just outer Sunset and housing and stuff like that.
I live in the Sunset, and like it's out there too. Not nearly as much.
Yeah.
But like, that Sprint store that I went to on Saturday, that was right on Market Street near Powell. And I kind of joked when the guy kicked the Billy Idol meth head out. I was just like, oh, is that guy looking for the new phone? And the guy just kind of shook his head and he was like, you have no idea. Like, every single day that shit happens.
Huh.
Like, I can't imagine just trying to sell a goddamn cell phone and then all of a sudden you're put in this position where you have to be a bouncer for meth addicts.
I mean, yeah, it's like at some point it's a level of danger
Yes.
in a weird way with some people like that. Yeah,
I feel dangerous standing in the store for 20 minutes trying to get a phone contract. Like I can't imagine working there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've certainly had my experiences being around meth addicts and people freaking out and stuff like that. Not always in San Francisco. Yeah,
it's very unpredictable.
Anyway, the taxi driver said the police here do nothing because they get paid $60,000 a year and feel no motivation to do anything. She called it a strange kind of corruption. So I'm asking you, is she right about homeless people just being in plain sight here, but actually everywhere? And is $60,000 a lot or not enough? I don't quite get what she meant. Also, on my 30-plus miles hike throughout San Francisco on my own one day and randomly ran into Matthew Rory.
That's awesome.
As he was picking up pizza. Oh, yeah. You want to talk about running into crazy people on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was extremely nice and invited me to walk and talk with him for more than 20 minutes. So shouts out and thanks again to him. But those streets, bridges, and houses sure were pretty in San Francisco. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's, I think that, there are definitely cities where stuff is bad. I think, it's fucking tough out there.
Yeah,
I mean, you're right. Like, yeah, there are people out there that are certainly mentally ill. Not everyone.
No.
There are people out there that are addicts and have found themselves into situations. There's some people that are just trying to get by and trying to get out of that situation and finding that the system is not necessarily set up in a way to make it easy to get out of that situation a lot of the time.
And there's just no easy answer, for anyone involved here. Whether it's
like how do you balance the right level of services versus budgets and all this other stuff to kind of keep a city like this running? Like, you think fucking Sim City is hard. Like, fuck, man, try for real. Like, it's
especially in a place that is just. There's so much weird money flying around San Francisco.
Like, that's the thing is the highs and the lows of it.
Yeah.
Of just like, there's that, but then there's also the fucking Google bus driving people out of San Francisco to Mountain View every day so they can go work at the Google campus. And
it's all tight and small and unprecedented and weird, and no one knows what to do.
Yeah.
I think the thing that scares me most about the San Francisco problem is that in New York, like I said, there were homeless people and stuff, and there's a chance you'll get mugged in any city, But like in New York, I always felt like I was within like a block and a half of a police officer that I could go up to and be like, hey, or I could yell police or something and like point at a guy. I never see cops in the city. Like almost never. Like sometimes there's some down there on Howard Street in that big intersection, but most of the time there's not as many people on the street, not just cops. When there's more people like in New York, whatever, you feel safer because some good Samaritan, might come help you out or something.
Yeah.
But like at night, you walk around downtown at like 11, 12 at night or something. There's really no pedestrians walking around. There's certainly no cops.
Right.
And there are plenty of people that seem a little unhinged. And so it's kind of uneasy walking around the city, whereas I don't feel as uneasy walking around someplace like New York or Minneapolis.
I think there are parts of New York where you'd find that times 5.
Oh, any city's going to have their areas that are like their version of the Tenderloin or whatever. But even just like downtown, like where we work, this office, this isn't like a particularly rough area. But I've walked home late at night from this area and like get into the train station. I kind of feel like I'd be screwed if someone tried to, stab me right now or something.
Yeah. I mean, my wife was going to a concert and, she's not from the area and she's been to San Francisco and she's done stuff. But, like there was that feeling of just like, okay, well, she's got to park somewhere. She's got to get from this concert to her car to all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, what's actually going to be a good route for this? Like, should she actually just call an Uber and then go to a different parking lot? And then it's like, okay, well, sometimes Uber is actually not safe either. It's fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Just buy one of those bear suits and just wear that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, just out crazy everyone you see as best you can. But yeah, you're right. It is kind of unprecedented and you're right. Because I don't think anyone really has the answer about what to do.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. Let's take one more email.
All right.
You want to go out on the crippling depression of San Francisco's homeless problem?
Stratton from Ottawa writes in and says, since this is often a topic of conversation, a recent local Reddit thread inspired me to write this email. It seems this is Canada. Seems our provincial retailer for beer is silently rolling out watermelon for Loko, according to their website at least, and at 11.9 ABV.
It's substantial.
Apparently, it's brewed in Quebec by a company that also makes something called Octane 7.0. So I question its authenticity. My question is, should my first Four Loko experience be this stuff or the more legit version from the States if I can find it?
Well, does Four Loko even still like have the bite or whatever that
No,
it used
it
to? Like
doesn't,
they had
yeah.
to take out the caffeine, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there is no legit Four Loko in the U.S. anymore.
Okay.
It's all bullshit.
Unless you know a guy.
Unless you know a guy. But that stuff was made so many years ago now.
Yeah.
Speaking
That
as
was
someone
like-
who has some sealed cans of pre-banned Sparks,
Mm-hmm.
This is like 2010, 2011, I remember the ban was. Right?
yeah, like that stuff does not age especially well. So I don't know what they're making in Canada. It might be the real shit. Who knows? Because Canada likes the cool
It's a
stuff.
lawless frontier.
Exactly. So I would maybe find out if that actually has the energy stuff in it, because that might be cool. Also, it's all terrible.
That your Sparks was the only experience I ever had with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something else.
Yeah.
Don't.
It's weird
do
to
it,
feel it's really weird to feel wired, like buzzing awake while you're also getting drunk. Because normally getting drunk is, depressant, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I could totally pass out right now.
No, yeah.
But then when you got that like crazy buzz, like you've just had a bunch of coffee or something.
you're drinking like college kid speedballs, basically, and some people can't handle that, and bad shit happens. That's why they decided to ban it. I think that sucks.
Were people getting
but
into fights, or were they
I think it
drinking
was
too
like
much?
you would have people that would just like, because of the caffeine and stuff in the drink, they would basically be blackout drunk. They'd be like in a state where they're like not going to remember anything that happens, but they're still fucking out on their feet going,
just
"Ah!"
tons of energy, and
Yeah.
also that's not.
They're basically marketing it to college kids who are not super experienced drinkers a lot of the time, and mistakes get made, bad shit happens. So, I understand why they would fucking nanny state it up and fucking ban the cool shit. But whatever. It's before that, it was years of people drinking Red Bull and vodka. Before that, had taken on like this douchey undertone that it kind of has now, which is sad for me because I thought Red Bull and vodka is a-okay. But Red Bull and vodka actually, I think, didn't necessarily always do the same thing because it was just slightly higher quality stuff. Whereas Four Loko is like the lowest quality alcohol and energy you could put together because they're selling it as cheaply as possible. And
A little more of a wild card.
yeah.
The worst.
It's going to leave you feeling a little rough. Whereas like Red Bull and vodka, I usually would come off of that and going like, all right, I'm
The worst,
all right.
It's the worst I've ever felt from drinking out of hundreds of really bad, drinking feelings, is Red Bull vodka in Vegas. I had a night where I just went to Buffalo Bill's Crap Saloon, where it's the $3 crap stables, it's the cheapest in Vegas.
Okay, I thought you were meaning crap saloon. I was like, so it's
No,
bad
it's great. And so I just played craps all night, and you get free stuff while you're gambling.
yeah.
And so it was late at night, and so I just kept getting Red Bull and vodkas over and over and over again. And then I went back to the hotel and tried to sleep, and that was the worst fucking feeling in the world. Like feeling like
that feeling
sick.
of like you're still drunk but you can't sleep.
Can't
and like
sleep
you
at
want
all.
to sleep very badly.
Yeah, just dry heaving and anxiety, and like it was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
No more of that.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here. Thanks, Dan and Drew, for making it into the office. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Giant Bombcast. What else we got going on this week? Cut the music. No, I mean, just go. I was going to say, what else we got going on this week?
Oh, stuff.
Forza. Quick look. We'll hit the site probably end of the week.
Destiny or something.
We'll fuck around with that and see where we get.
Are we doing Destiny without Brad?
Yeah, it's a new game. We have to cover new games.
All right.
So,
well, I'm in.
It's his fault.
I got the game. I like the game.
I got it as well. We'll figure it out. All right. We'll be back next week. Thanks. Well, we're here at the end of the show, and you're probably wondering what time it is.
I know, these things just go.
Yeah.
I lose all sense of time. If only I had a way to see where we were at.
That's why you need a movement watch.
Where does that go?
On your wrist. Movement watches start at just $95, but look like they should be like $400 or $500.
That sounds like a deal.
Movement offers these watches for a fraction of the price. So head over to mvmtwatches.com/bombcast. And when you do that, not only can you look at these watches, but you'll get 15% off your entire purchase.
And
that's mvmtwatches.com/bombcast.